All right, welcome everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the Corporation of the Township of Whistler on March 20th, 2024. I will start with roll call. Councillor Bailey, here, Councillor Hurst, present. Councillor Goida,
Present.
Councillor Spoulos, present. All right, now we'll begin our moment of reflection. This is our moment of reflection. Ms. White, Fox, have a resolution for confirmation of the agenda, please.
The council approves the March 20th, 2024 agenda and addendum as circulated, and the council approves the addition to the agenda as follows. Consent item 6.1.4, questions received from council seeking additional information and the corresponding responses provided by staff. And that council approved the changes to the order of business as follows. Advance the reading of bylaw 2024-030, being bylaw to appoint Jamie McNeil as fire chief to 12 p.m. And defer the written delegation by Paul and Jamie Kreutzweiser regarding item 9.3.2, designation objection for property owner 4492 Watson Road South to be considered alongside item 9.3.2.
Okay, move for that. Councillor Goida, Councillor Spoulos, any questions or comments on that? All in favor? That's carried. Oh, is he? Anyways, it's fine. All right, might as well just jump right into our delegations and follow disclosure of pecuniary interest first.
Mayor, I have a disclosure of pecuniary interest. It's item 9.3.6, Get It Done Act, 2024 Amendments to Official Plan Adjustments Act, 2023. I live on Side Road 20 North and have previously declared to have a pecuniary interest in a proposed rezoning of a property on Side Road 20 North identified as 4631 Side Road 20 North in the above noted council report. The report recommends adding this property to study area for the regionally significant economic development study. I've also previously declared a pecuniary interest in the study as it relates to all properties on the east side of Side Road 20 North and Mountain 34 to Forest Hill Road. Any development of the above mentioned properties may have an impact on the value of my property. Accordingly, I cannot participate in discussions or decisions regarding the motion. The council requests the proposed Bill 162 legislation include the following previous provincial application. One, the addition of lands 4631 Side Road 20 North to the regionally significant economic development study area.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Spoulos. Any other disclosure of pecuniary interest? All right, seeing none. And now we can move into delegations. I believe, Mr. Taylor, you're up first. I did notice you're sitting beside the individual there. If they're wanting to participate, you just can't participate from the gallery. They'd have to sit at the table. Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome, and you're begin whenever you're ready.
Okay, thanks. Mayor and councilors, 2.5 centimeters and 20 seconds. That's all it takes for a child to drown. A child under 5 years of age can drown in as little as 2.5 centimeters of water, or 1 inch, and as little as 20 seconds. Scary, yet it's a fact. The Canadian Pediatric Society and a host of other children's associations warn of this fact. That, of course, means that a child can drown in Borum Park, where the water is often not only 2.5 centimeters in the ditches on the sides of the playground, but instead between 7.5 and 20 centimeters deep. The numbers 2.5 and 20, in the end, those are the only numbers that matter. You may hear other numbers today and from different professionals. However, as a council, you will be left with this question, and I encourage you to ask it of any professional heard today. Quote, is there any other option but underground culverts? installed on the two sides of the playground area that will eliminate the potential for a child drowning in that area. End of quote. What is a child's life worth? I hope you will agree that a child's life is worth far more than $18,000, or even more. $18,000 being the written estimate of Acton precast concrete for steel culverts to be installed on the two sides of the playground. Just like the 20 meters or 65 feet of steel culverts were installed along the west end of the playground, we're recommending that the same be installed on the north and south sides. A flat and safe surface also would extend the playground area on the north side for another 30 to 40 feet with flat and safe grass. It also would connect the two activities of the park, the playground and the basketball court. What is the highest duty of an elected official? The answer, of course, is to protect the health and safety of the public, and especially of children and the most vulnerable. Is the health and safety of our children this council's highest priority? If so, culverts should be installed. Money exists for the culverts in the Parkland Dedication Fund. Staff have confirmed, quote, as of October 11th, 2023, the balance was $2.2 million. However, the estimate balance of December 31st, 2024 is $765,000. GM Blue Tech's technical memo correctly states that the ditches serve both a conveyance and an infiltration function. But in the end, it all comes back to, if the water in the drainage ditches alongside where children play remains above ground instead of underground, a child can drown. Water in drainage ditches doesn't care if there's a hedge, or how low or high it grows, or if there is a fence, or any other barrier, or whether the park is situated on a stormwater management facility, SWM, or if conveyance of water through the ditches versus infiltration of water in the ditches is at a ratio of 40 to 60. For example, 40% for conveyance and 60% for infiltration, or 50-50 or 70-30. The water in the ditches alongside the playground area does not care about any of the above. And as Jim Sanders, the Canadian Certified Playground Inspector, recommended to us by the Ontario Parks Association, stated, quote, in my line of work, too often I see that, yes, stuff happens and tragedy strikes quickly. The only solution to prevent injuries and potential drownings in the ditches along the two sides of the playground is to install culverts. What kind of culverts? Perforated with holes possibly to allow for both conveyance of water to the northwest corner of the park and also infiltration of water into the ditches, or non-perforated. Ultimately, that's a decision of council and staff. We hope one of you will move a motion today to look into the advisability and feasibility of culverts being installed for the safety of children along the two sides of the playground area. Experts we consulted. All of the over 15 experts we consulted confirmed that a child can drown in as little as 2.5 centimeters of water and in as little as 20 seconds. They include the Canadian Pediatric Society. And I don't have time to quote all their quotes, but if you want to hear from them later, this is sort of the condensed version. Secondly is Life Saving Society Ontario. They're the successors about a year ago of the Canadian Red Cross that used to manage all water safety programs in Canada. So now it's Life Saving Society Canada. We asked them this question. Are you concerned like we are that a child could run and fall into the drainage ditches or ride their bike into the drainage ditches, injure themselves and potentially drown? Response, yes, this is a possibility. I forgot to mention, we sent them all 20, 30 photos of the park and the water in the ditches. Next, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. On their website, the danger of drainage ditches is cited, and that a hedge or fence would not allow a caregiver to be within arm's length of a child that has wandered into the ditch. Next, the Canadian Child Care Federation. Children have can drown in less than 4 centimeters of water, enough to cover the mouth and nose. Studies have shown that many children drown when their supervisor's attention is distracted only for a moment. Both points should be carefully considered in planning. They mean by municipality. The last one is the research group parachute. Children under 5 years old are at special risk for drowning. Why? 1, they are attracted to water, but they don't understand the danger. 2, they lack balance and coordination and are at increased risk of falling into water. 3, and this is the most important one, their lungs are smaller than adults and they fill quickly with water. To summarize the potential for a child's drowning, 2.5 centimeters and 20 seconds are the most important numbers you will hear today. More than any GM Blue Tech or other engineering numbers, or Safarian or other landscape architecture numbers, or even any other numbers we cite. If culverts are installed alongside the playground area, the numbers for potential drownings falls to 0 and 0. If culverts are not installed, the potential for drownings and the numbers 2.5 and 20 remain. Also, there are online studies that confirm the dangers of children under 5 drowning in as little as 2.5 centimeters of water. They include Kids Rehabilitation Hospital, the Child and Nature Alliance of Canada, the American Academy of Pediatrics. The latter includes irrigation ditches, ponds, or other standing water. The number 2 item today, warnings from experts about barriers, such as hedges or fences. From an email from Jim Sanders, a Canadian certified playground inspector with over 30 years experience and a go-to expert of the Ontario Parks Association. I can't take the time to read his credentials, but he teaches the other inspectors, and he's also on the technical committee of the famous Z614 Children's Play Spaces and Equipment. First is the application of the Z614 standard. I would easily predict that in due time, the placement of a hedge alongside the play space retainment wall will indeed create a non-compliant issue. I say this as it is a requirement, clause 14.1.1, that the protective surfacing zone for each play structure shall be, quote, obstacle-free. As we all will agree, this hedge will grow both upwards and outwards. Yes, I can see a time where the lateral branches will conflict with this requirement. Can these branches be trimmed regularly to control this? Perhaps, but do we really intend to add this burden to the future maintenance staff? That, and cut branches at eye level, may also not be a good idea. Mr. Sanders continues. What I do see in this particular case is that in time, these small bushes will grow into larger trees and clearly impede the aspect of visual surveillance for parents, caregivers at the playground. In my view, visual awareness is fundamental to the acceptance of water risk. Mr. Sanders continues, can the user clearly see that there is water in the ditch? With regard to these storm management systems, they may vary in water depth on a day-to-day basis. Can the user clearly see that the young child is getting close to and or is interacting with that water?
Mr. Taylor?
Yeah.
You may continue. I'm just going to advise you that you are now exceeding the 10 minutes for delegations that is permitted in the procedural bylaw.
Right.
The state, you may continue. I just want to bring you aware that.
Okay. I'll try to be as brief as possible.
Bring it to your attention.
Okay. By intentionally placing a solid visual barrier between the play space and the potential hazard, is this helping or hindering the caregiver's judgment for acceptance of the risk? Mr. Sanders continues. Example, a young child runs into the hedge to retrieve an errant ball, follow a wandering pet, participate in a game of hide and seek, or simply wander off to explore the far side. Water is very attractive to a child. Again, he reminds us that stuff happens and tragedy strikes quickly. Mr. Sanders concludes, bottom line is, can this situation with regard to drainage swales adjacent to the play space be handled differently than what is being shown? My opinion, yes. From Mr. John Howard on planting any hedge He's the go-to horticulture expert of the Ontario Parks Association, also concerned with visual awareness and any visual impairment. He very briefly states, I would not recommend planting the yew. This is back when the yews were planted. This is less in response to the concerns about toxicity and more in consideration of the proximity of the 6 to 8 feet deep steep bank swales adjacent to the playground. There is limited space for a barrier planting without eventually growing into and encroaching on the play space. From Life Saving Society Ontario, a hedge will not prevent children from accessing the ditch. This is concerning, especially when water is present. On the conveyance of flow versus infiltration of the drainage ditches, that's the number 3 item. I'll just very briefly summarize it, and then I'll conclude. The report focuses on options to redesign the whole stormwater management facility. It does not address the option of perforated or non-perforated corrugated culverts being installed on only the 2 sides of the playground area. The report does not provide data on how much the ditches serve as conveyance of water to the northwest corner of the park versus how much the ditches serve as infiltration of water into the ditches. Is it 50-50, 60-40, 70-30? The report correctly states, however, that perforations promote infiltration. 3, the function of the pond is not even totally known. As the report states, further review and discussion with MTE may be required to confirm the function of the pond. Lastly, community recommendations for signage of what is permitted or not is permitted in the park, symbols or words or both. Precedent legal cases of plaintiffs against municipalities for injuries sustained in parks confirm that what is permitted and not permitted in parks should be posted in the park, on the municipal's website, and on any printed material, all 3, to not leave the municipality exposed to significant liability. No sign with what is permitted or not has been posted in the park. Our recommendations: 1, the park is situated on a stormwater management facility. Do not allow children to play in, walk through, or your pets to walk in or drink from the drainage ditches. Please do not litter. Please pick up after your dog. No motorized vehicles, no smoking or vaping, no alcohol or illegal drugs, no excessive noise. If retrieving balls, etc. from the ditches, where they usually are, wash your hands thoroughly after. No open fires or fireworks. Use waste receptacles. Supervision of children is recommended. The park is a dawn to dusk park. Coyotes often cross the park from the north and the east between 7 p.m. and midnight. No winter maintenance. In case of emergencies, call 911. In case of complaints or issues, call Cushlands Township at this. The emergency address is this. And we also recommend drive slowly be painted in both directions on the asphalt of Bourne Drive. I conclude. In conclusion, based on all the information provided to you today, we hope you will move a motion to look into the advisability and feasibility of culverts being installed on the 2 sides of the playground area. If not, we will continue to stand up for children's safety until the culverts are installed and the ditches replaced with a flat, safe surface. It's our civic and moral duty. It is unanimous from Children's Health Authorities that a child can drown in as little as 2.5 centimeters of water and in as little as 20 seconds. As a council, to live with the risk of injuries and drowning in Bourne Park and to ask Cushlands residents to settle for the same is not an option. It would be a message to all of Cushlands residents that our children's health and safety are not your highest priority. It, in fact, would be unconscionable. I'll end with the words of Prime Minister Mulroney. John, you may remember this from the famous national debates in 1984 with Prime Minister Turner. During a television national election debate, Mr. Mulroney pointed his finger at then Prime Minister John Turner and said, "You had an option, sir. You could have done better." You today, folks, have an option. You actually have a moral and legal duty. You can choose not to settle for 2.5 and 20. You can choose 0 and 0. Even years after your term on council, you would never want to risk being told you had an option. You could have done better. You do have an option, and I encourage you to take it before it's too late. Thank you for being able to go over time.
All right. Maybe ask staff to just explain a little bit the process of how we do a project. So in your delegation, you mentioned that, you know, the costing is $18,000 for some pipe and that's just not how a municipality can do a project. We just can't go to the local concrete supplier and buy 3 lengths of pipe and throw some dirt over top of it. So I think that the $18,000 is a misrepresentation of what the municipality would incur and the process we would incur to remedy this perceived concern that you have. So I'll come to you with that. The other component is when that subdivision was developed, in lieu of a stormwater management plan or pond, that these ditches were intended to have some infiltration and retain water, slow water. So the likelihood of maybe even your home might not have been there because it would we would need a stormwater management plan or some means of mitigating. So the subdivision has its layout as it is due to the fact that they use these ditches as an infiltration component. So now would that go forward? I don't know if we'd ever see that again, but that's the reality of that subdivision. It has that layout because it has those ditches for infiltration. So to just put pipe in the ground and cover it over does not address the runoff on the surface. Because that would be, you know, I'm not asking you questions and you're not to respond. So staff, if you could just, you know, at a high level, explain the process when we go through capital projects. It's not simply sourcing a product and putting it in the ground.
Certainly. So through you, Mr. Chair, typically the way something like this would start is with direction from council to get some quotes from our engineers, which we did investigate back in October 2023. So GM Blue Plan did provide some high level estimates on a few options that council could consider should they wish to proceed with this work. But ultimately, if council did want to move forward with this, it would be subject to a request for proposal. So in accordance with our procurement policies, we would have to go out to tender for this. And then we would be rating those proposals from potential contractors based on a number of criteria, but certainly cost. And so with a stormwater management facility, certainly the engineering is a significant component to make sure that it still functions the way that it's intended to. So we did receive those different options from our engineer of what we would be looking at if we were to proceed with this work. It included the options for a box culvert, the options for a buried infiltration basin, or the options to do a barricade around the dry pond, either with vegetation or chain link. And so that investigation, to the delegate's point, was conducted already in October of 2023. And council did make a decision based on that in October 2023, which was the option to proceed with some vegetation. So that's sort of the process that we would be looking at in general with projects. I'd also just like to make the note as well, just in conversation with our engineer who works sort of throughout southern Ontario. It is quite common to see parks established near stormwater management facilities, particularly in newer subdivisions. You often see that the pond, if it is a wet pond, is sort of incorporated into the where the parks are situated. It's fairly common. In this case, it is a dry pond. So we're not looking at sort of a body of water that's there in the park.
Thank you, Brad. Yeah, so back to it, it's the days are long gone if they were ever around, that you just buy a pipe, put it in the ground and put over top. And for you, I am very comfortable in supporting staff's recommendations on leaving the ditches and 1000%. And you know, the analogy of you can do better, pointing in this direction, I am comfortable in my decision and supported in that, and you can quote me on that. So I'm very comfortable with the layout of that park. I don't feel it poses a risk to our children any more than a roadside ditch. And I think we will just have Ms. Whitefox read the resolution, please.
So it's the council receives the delegation by Bruce Taylor for information.
Can you move for that, please? Councilor Goyda, second by Councilor Hurst, all in favor? Okay, excellent. No,
I
no,
object.
sir, not from the gallery, sir.
I am going
No.
to speak
No, you
because
are not going to speak, sir.
Yes, I
No,
am.
you're not.
I'm
You're
going
not allowed
to
to
speak.
speak.
This is a
If you have an
disability,
opportunity to come down,
issue.
you had an opportunity.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to ask a question of staff. With respect to the hedges, we took them out, is our intention to replace them or leave them out? I think the sight lines, unless you get some other opinions, are important for, to leave them out.
So through you, Mr. Chair, staff can certainly bring that back. We can work with our landscape architect and the park designer to see if there is an appropriate vegetation that could be placed there, but if the determination is that a hedge is not appropriate, we can certainly just replant those plants on another location.
Okay, that's the next question. I know we spent a lot of time with our consultant to review the ditches and all that. It came to a very hefty price tag. The only thing that we might want to consider is put some sort of grading of the ditches. I don't know if it's feasible or not, like it's gonna be a span of about 10 feet or not, but it's feasible or not, just in the area of the playground. Just wondering if that's an option we can certainly look at.
So through Mr. Chair, council, staff would be seeking a specific direction from council. I can just advise that the report that was conducted in October 2023 did come with a price tag of around $4,500 to get our engineers to produce that. So there would be a cost to have them come back to look at the potential for additional grading in the swales.
Okay, so I'd like to have a discussion on that. Just wondering if there's any support from the rest of the council.
Sorry, I'm just thinking through this in my mind. So what you're just wanting to have a discussion, you have to move a motion.
Well, I'd like to move that staff consider something that retains the functionality of the ditches from both an infiltration and a runoff point of view, such as grading.
Sorry,
Certainly in the area of the playground.
not to undermine your motion, Councilor Spoulos. We have 4 members here. It may be advantageous to wait for Councilor Bailey to return, because if you end up in a tie vote on your motion, it's going to be defeated. But just cognizant of that.
I'm fine with that, whatever.
Okay, so he's moving the motion. Do we have a seconder to discuss, as Councilor Spoulos? Okay, Councilor. So, now the meat and potatoes of your,
Yeah, it dawned on me, while we're having this delegation, I understand that the issue is infiltration plus runoff type of thing, and to me, the only thing that makes sense to do both is some sort of a grading that's in the vicinity of the playground, which achieves a couple of achieves both the 2 options as well as the option of a perceived danger to the kids.
not saying grading, saying grating,
Grading,
like steel grates or galvanized grates. I
expand and now grading,
don't know if you heard, I'm just making sure you
Yes,
heard.
no, that's appreciated. And through you, Mr. Chair, there might be some benefit in doing some monitoring of the swales, in heavy rainfall and during melt. I don't think that staff have any data regarding the amount of water that's being stored or the amount of time. So without that information, we're really relying on the function of the stormwater management plan and sort of the data that is provided by the engineers, but it may be beneficial to actually have some on-site data during those incidents where we do have infiltration and sort of water present to see what the actual levels of those ditches are before we make any decisions around it.
I hear you, I just want to have all I'm asking is to have a look at that, so that's my motion on the table. I was
I
wanting
seconded.
I wanted to have the other comments from Mr. Council.
Councilor Hurst?
Yeah, I'm supportive of Councilor Sepoulos's motion. I think Ms. White Fox makes a really good point around just having some visual data, technical data in terms of water flow from winter melt and significant rain events over the next couple, 3 months type of thing. So I'd be encouraged to see a staff report back of potential options as Councilor Sapulis has recommended.
Yeah, I would support seeing what the grading would look like. I would, be interested to hear though, in addition to that, I don't exactly know, I'm assuming what you mean is just putting like variegated kind of.
Yeah.
Roads.
What I'm accustomed with the past is, you have a framework and then you have what they call expanded metal, which is basically, non-slip type of thing with, you're able to walk on it. Trying to think of anything in.
You see them in the cities, they're generally rectangular, but they can come in a diamond pattern, but, some of the, I'm not a city guy, but you know, maybe for the subways where the heating ducts would come up through the concrete and they're air.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm envisioning, something
Yeah,
along the
something
similar
like
lines.
So then would, and maybe this is something that staff could report back on, but would the grass and things still grow underneath of it? How would staff maintain it? How would staff
Well-
access the underneath side of that? I don't know, I mean.
I don't know, and that's something that staff can say it's not feasible because of that.
So I think in addition to just doing the sort of the capital work that would be involved in it, it would be also valuable to know from a sort of an operational perspective, what that would entail as well.
My perspective is we don't need any of it. And I said it to Bruce. This is just a personal vendetta against this council and this park. And if you put grading on there, a child could crawl on it and hurt their wrist, get their hand stuck in the hole. Like, just because he doesn't have a concern over that safety concern, we're gonna put grading on and the maintenance. So it's my opportunity and I can vent. This individual just keeps attacking every component, trying to get traction in any part that he can. And for us to inundate staff with going back and reviewing the ditches and reviewing and spending more money is not appropriate. So, I mean, it doesn't sound like we're gonna have to get engineered. So at some point, we need to stop and just realize this is just a vendetta from this individual.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have a concern, having a quick look at it. Also, I would like to get a safety review too. Because I really don't like somebody accusing us of not doing a due diligence. I don't like somebody accusing us that we're endangering life. You and I, I'm sure differing opinions of this. I'd like to get some expert opinion on that and just bury it that way. If the staff come back and say, look, we've checked with everybody and it's not an issue, then fine, I'll back on. I just think we need to do our due diligence. I don't need this coming up every so often that we're accused of endangering children type of thing. I agree with you. It's sensationalism on one part, but on the other part, if there's any semblance of any potential, then we should dispel it or do something about it. Simple as that.
Mr. Fowler, are you aware of the remainder of the ditches in the Borum, call it subdivision, are used as infiltration as well? So what I'm getting at is the ditches in front of the houses, are they more like a conduit, or do they also act as a infiltration component?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, you are correct. The entire subdivision, stormwater management plan did indicate that just like Borum Park ditches, the Borum Drive ditches also are used as a conveyance and also as infiltration. So the amount of water that actually reaches Borum Park is cut in half, if not by 40%, by the time it does reach the ditches at Borum Park.
So I'd like staff to also consider that if we only piecemeal this, so we should all in cover all the ditches, or, because if we, I just staff can report back on it, that if we only do this one part and we recognize this as a liability, then why are we ignoring the remainder of the subdivision? So,
My motion is strictly to do with the area beyond the playground. That's what, Mr. Mayor. If you want to amend my motion, then you're free to do so, but I certainly that's on my request.
Well, I can speak to that when the report comes back because.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, so any further comments, Councilor Hurst?
One question that Mr. Taylor had flagged around signage at the Forum Park, and it's a question of staff and whether you can answer it now or in the future, I'll leave it with you. Is the signage, is it any different than any of the other parks within the municipality in terms of what is there?
So through you, Mr. Chair, it is not any different. There was signage placed at our different parks when we did our signage master plan, and so there's those sort of new navy blue signs that have been posted around the community. In general, signage around regulatory bylaws and restricted activities is not common in our municipality. And that is primarily because of our bylaw complaint policy and how we are not proactive related to enforcement. We very much are focused on an educational position when it comes to bylaw enforcement. And if there was an issue, perhaps we saw this at the Pilsnitch Community Center. We had many complaints around dogs off leash. And so that resulted in the township posting a sign around the dogs off leash bylaw. So it is very much based on if there isn't a problem or there aren't concerns, then there really isn't a rationale for posting those regulatory signs. We could end up with, very, very long lists if we were to incorporate all of our regulatory bylaws on the sign.
And fair enough, and I totally understand the fact that you could have an 8-foot billboard of all the nuances there, and I don't think anybody wants that. So I was just curious how it differs or is similar to other parks, so that satisfied what I was looking for. Thank you.
Have no questions?
Still have this motion on the table, so, is there a budgetary component to this, or you want to report back on how much it's gonna cost to get engineers to look at this a second time, or?
So through you, Mr. Chair, just for a clarification, I heard a couple of different things. The one was to look at adding grates across the swales in Borum Park in order to level out the terrain, and that report would include costs associated with not just the capital, but increased operating for maintenance. And we wanted to look at a safety.
This is strictly to do in the area of the playground.
Yes, okay.
Okay, strictly to do the playground. The way I would suggest is the first thing is a safety component. There is no safety issues, and I don't think we need to get into the grading.
So through you, Mr. Chair, would you like us to report back on a quote for a safety study of the park prior to proceeding? I don't know what that would cost. I know what we spent on similar different studies in previous years around to do with our roads and safety, but I don't know what that would look like with the park.
Strictly in the area of playground.
I would need to report back on the cost of what that,
She's looking for, she's wanting to hire, do you want staff to do the investigation and report back, or do you want to?
Mr. Mayor, then I would suggest we give an upset limit $2,000 to the thing.
What's your gut telling you on what it costs to do this safety study would be?
So I would say we're looking at,
Everybody on the spot.
I don't know, I would say between 5 and 10.
So I would suggest,
5 to 10,000. I would. Okay. I see somebody going out there for a day and then writing up a report in 2 or 3 days type of thing. So
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think that staff I'd want to know which consultant we would use. I would feel more comfortable
sure,
reporting
that's
back.
fine. That's fine. I'm okay. I shouldn't push it.
so you're amending your motion for staff to report back on a quote for a safety study as well as the first step, whether like logical, or sorry,
Okay, the motion is to have staff report on the cost to do a safety study of the area surrounding the playground. And have further warranted after the study and to report on the costs associated with implementing some features.
I don't,
such as a grading.
I don't feel it would be burdensome to get a costing for, the grading installation at the same time as the costing for, right? Because you're just gonna call whoever you call and say,
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to spend any money and time if the issue is not a safety issue.
well, that's what I'm trying to get at. I feel that it doesn't cost us money for them to ask a company how much it's gonna cost us to quote this job. Or to, because what I'm trying to do is stop delaying this thing. I
That's
don't
fine,
want the
Mr.
one to
Mayor.
come and then months go by and then the next one come, like,
No,
let's
that's
get a
fine.
price on the safety thing, let's get a price on, like if we're gonna need engineers, it's $5,000. If we need then, you know, and then we can get those costs without
That's fine.
spending much
That's
money.
fine. Okay.
Can you, is that possible? You can bring them both back at the same time? But it might be a moot point because the first safety,
Exactly, that's what
first
I'm
one might
saying.
say,
Exactly, that's what I'm saying, but if you want to proceed with the cost on the second, I'm not gonna say that.
at least leave it with staff. They.
Sure.
I'll leave, yeah. leave it.
I'll put it in, we'll get a quote, for both and bring them both back. And then, through Mr. Chair, as your point, one might make the other.
Who seconded that? Counselor Goya, feel there's been some amendments, you're still, I assume you're still comfortable?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I am, but I think to maybe just to ensure that when both the study and the quote is being done, it's scoped to specifically just the terrain. I don't think Councilor Zaboris, unless I'm misunderstanding, you're not asking them to do a safety study of the new play structure and the.
No, it's strictly
Strictly
the,
talking about
the environment around the playground, that's strictly that.
the ground surface around the playground.
Strictly that. I don't have a concern with the rest of the part, just strictly around the playground. The accusations being made that we're endangering children, and I just want to make sure that we're on the side of the industry.
Read out what I have.
Sure, please.
Okay. The council directs staff to report back on the detailed costing of a safety study of the area surrounding the playground. And further, the council directs staff to report back on the costing of a grate system for swales surrounding the playground in order to level out the terrain.
It's not about leveling up the terrain, it's about putting a grade on top of the terrain. Right?
It's basically.
The grade is
something.
fine, it's building on top so that you can walk across it or just, I know, whatever.
Can you read that one more time, please? Sorry.
Okay.
I don't want to belabor this.
Yeah, no worries. The council directs staff to report back on the detailed costing of a safety study of the area surrounding the Boron playground. And further, that council directs staff to report back on costing of a grate system for the swales surrounding the playground.
That's better.
Thanks.
And if that does entail grading, which you never know, you can just capture it. All good?
I think Councilor Gore's point is that, any associated maintenance concerns.
So through Mr. Chair, the detailed costing I added just so that we could look at both capital and all.
Okay, that's great, that's good. It may not fly because the span might be too great, so that's fine.
So I know you said I'd have to amend the motion. I can't amend your motion, but I feel it's a fair question to ask staff to also view the challenges or safety concerns with grading. Because there's zero possibility in my mind that there's zero safety concerns with grading the holes and things like that. So just because one individual has a concern with one safety thing,
Yeah.
but will turn a blind eye to the other one.
Well, okay, and that's fine. The safety study can look at that as well.
So just if that's take where or report that,
Yeah.
and
But I'd rather not get the costing of the grading in at this time. Mr.
That's
Mayor.
fine. And
Okay.
I just want to give them the option, because if the first thing the first phone call they make, they say, yeah, this is a red herring or, you know, this is a major safety concern, then they can start the process of getting the costing. But if their first
Yeah,
conversations are this,
and I'm just doing a layperson's suggestion of a grading that preserves the integrity of the ditch type of thing. It could be out to lunch, so to speak. So I don't have a concern having the safety study look at it and possible solutions included in the safety study.
and I am not gonna be upset or disappointed if the other component of the grading has to come back at a different time. It's just, I don't want this to continue to be dragged out, because it'll be that meeting. Right, and then the next-
We've gone through the, we've
Yeah.
gone through the culverts already.
Yeah.
Okay, and, there's some concerns raised, accusing
Yeah.
us of not looking after the welfare of children. I want to dispel that by a safety study,
Oh, fine.
and, there is a concern, I'd like to see that addressed.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I'm just trying not to delay this thing. Trying to condense it, so it gets dealt with.
I understand, Mr. Mayor.
So,
And to
but if it
me,
doesn't work on staff side, I'm fine too, but just giving them a few options. Okay, so I think it's clear as mud.
So Courtney, I think we forego the second part, the grading and, the study would look at options associated with any safety issues, including grading.
Okay, so through Mr. Chair, we're wanting to look at the safety study and we're wanting to suggest to that consultant the option of a grate, and would that cause any additional safety concerns?
And well, I would turn around the other way, let them come up with suggested solutions. In other words, let the experts do.
It's just that we're asking them to come up with suggested solutions. Likely that their suggested solutions are going to be the things we've already explored.
Yeah, but if there's a safety concern, we can't do, we can't do.
My 2 cents would be is, I think the first question is there a safety concern? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Stop or
Let's fine,
start?
let's start there. That'll get us going.
And then the next piece is, if there's an identifiable safety concern, is this like a red flag safety concern, a yellow flag safety concern? Like
Is
the
this a standard safety concern that all municipalities have?
And some of it is, you just can't control human nature sometimes
So
too.
let's just report back on the safety concern.
It's fine, it's fine. Mr. Mayor. Okay,
Seconded that?
Yep.
It's been scoped down.
Mhm.
Scoped down. All good, all in favor? Let's go. Welcome our next delegation. Wilson Minor Ball.
Good morning, Mayor Sealy, Councilman, and staff. Thank you very much for having us here today. Appreciate it very much. Yeah, we have some, we'll give you our notes. So you guys can have something to go by follow. Okay, good enough out there, everybody. We have 2 sets. Kieran, okay, sorry, thank you.
Councilman Mercer.
There'll be just 2 sets of notes here. I'm gonna be doing part of the presentation. And my colleague Kieran Johal will be taking over. I'm in charge of baseball operations for Wilson Minor Ball. Kieran's title is marketing, social media marketing. You're just gonna pull my notes. We do have a presentation that we sent in to you guys. Some slideshow item.
I'm sure that.
Sorry, sorry. Just thought the visuals might be a bit easier, because I don't know how well versed everybody is with the ball diamonds in Puslinch. Perfect, thank you. And we'll just go to the first slide, please, there. I'm gonna start off, we have a couple different delegations here today, and the main focus of why we decided to do that was we just wanted to take our time with each of the different situations, scenarios we have. Start off with, I'll give you a little background, a little history on Puslinch Minor Ball, and specifically the old Morrison Diamond, which was built in the early 70s. This diamond was given to the township. It was actually Puslinch Minor Ball's diamond, and it was built, you know, and was given over and was told we were gonna have maintenance for the next 40, you know, for the last 40, 45 years. It was in the hands of the township to maintain. Until the last 4 or 5 years, we had very little maintenance down there, and I want to take this chance right now to thank the councilman and the mayor for your support, because the improvements and the upgrades that have happened over the last 4 or 5 years have been tremendous. Our numbers for Pilsen Ball at Minor Ball have grown from 40 kids about 3 years ago to now over 140 kids. That's substantial growth. We plan on keeping this going. And I do believe a lot of that has to do with our facilities being upgraded and made more modern. We want to continue pouring in a lot of TLC into the diamonds. We want to keep the uptake. We want to keep you as well in the know of what we need. So our goal is hopefully on a yearly basis in the fall, we'll sit down with you and present maybe some things that we're looking at doing. Now, we also don't want to throw all the costs back onto council. We're going to try and do our best to pitch in and help out as well. I know last year we did donate some money. We plan on hopefully doing some more in the years to come on this side of things. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to bring up some things that we feel need to be done. And if they can be done before the season starts, that would be great. I know this is coming short notice, but we've had a couple things thrown at us with the upgrades and changes, yeah, no pun intended, thrown at us with some of the upgrades and changes that occurred to the old Morriston Diamond. The first one you can see here, the septic lids are right in the middle of our bullpen. And they had to put new lids. We did have a chance to talk to Mike Buller about this. We had some other ideas. We listened to Mike's recommendations and ideas. We think there's some great idea and potential we can use with them. We also wanted to go in front of the rec committee. We had set up to do that. Unfortunately, the last time it got postponed on us. I used to be on the rec committee, and for me, that was very important to go to them and get some of their ideas, feedback, and support as well. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, and our time frame is getting crunched. We will probably go back to the rec committee though and still present to them just so that they're in the loop, because I think that's very important. The new septic leads went in last year, and as Mike informed me, they need to be done. They had to be done. You'll notice that there's a bit of a lip. They're up a bit high. If we move to the next slide, please. You can see they're right in line with our bullpen. It doesn't make for a very cohesive action when a ball gets hit off of those. Next slide, please. We'll stop there. So now this might give you a better view of it. You can see where it backs onto our concession stands there. It was a safety issue to begin with because the women's bathrooms there, we have a lot of little kids running around. We were going to bring this up to you guys, but now with the lids right in the middle of the bullpen, it's almost impossible for our guys to be warming up in front of that for this season. We have about 6 to 7 teams in Pilsen Minor Ball that use the bullpens and a women's team as well. What we are proposing is to move the bullpen and add one for both. So each side has one, because right now there's only one bullpen and it's short, right? It really only serves the purpose of the home team. So you know how that goes over with the rest of the league when they show up, and how come you have a bullpen and we don't? It's weird.
Perfect to me.
I like the competitive advantage, but they don't seem to like the ideas much. So if we move to the next slide, please. What we're proposing is, you can see this is the right field line. And what we want to do is put the bullpen right against the fence. And there's a reason for this. Where the bullpen originally was, we were looking at having to put some lighting in over the bullpen, because once you get into about the 8 o'clock games, there's no lighting. By putting it right against the fence, we're just going to piggyback the lighting from the field so that we don't need to do it. It's going to be one less cost, is what our thoughts here are. Now, the biggest costs on this is, you can see the cement pad at the very front down there. That's where we'd like to put about 10 feet of gravel right there, like the screening that we use on the fields. And if we use that there as the pitching mount, and then put the fencing a good 35 to 45 feet away for the bullpen down the other end. And that has to be, let's put in there about 8 to 10 feet of fencing. So 8 feet high, 10 feet wide. That gives us enough room to be able to do that. And it allows us to utilize the lights from the field. If we can use the next slide, please. That's just another view, another look from it from that side. So you can see it's from that light stand on. Just on the left side of that light pole, that's where the stands are. So we are moving things away from the concession stands for balls missing or ricocheting off those lids. Those are some of the concerns that we had with that. We can go to the next slide, please. I'll go down to the left field. This is where we get a little trickier. I did go out, I have measured, I have looked. We can do the same thing over here where the first pile of gravel is right there, is where I would recommend you put the ball, the pitching mound for the bullpen. And then down underneath the trees is where we put the 8x10 bullpen fence. The only trick here is somebody might be cussing my name when they go to dig holes to put the pipes in the ground there, because they're gonna hit tree roots on that one side. That's the only real disadvantage that any of us could really see when we were looking at this. Should be able to do it, but that was our biggest concern on that side. But now both teams have a bullpen down both sides, and we're trying to keep it at minimum cost. I did have a look at it. I know you guys are gonna have to go through your own own finances, and you're gonna have to look at what it's gonna cost. But basically, to do each one of those 8x10 screens, we're looking somewhere around $400 to $500. We also proposed the idea of getting used fence. We don't need brand new if you don't need to do it. If you have some already on site, whatever type of thing, it's a bullpen fence. It's not something that is necessarily for always protecting people. It's more for stoppage of the ball for that side of things. As I said, we need approximately 2 backstops on both sides. That's our first delegation, and that's dealing with the Old Morriston Ballpark. So I'll open it up to any questions or comments that you would like to propose now, Tess.
I think it's wise we do them.
Do you want us to do all?
No, we'll stop.
Okay, thank you.
Council has some questions, because otherwise it's gonna probably get too confusing, so.
Yeah.
All right, so, you're first.
Yeah, you're indicating might be able to contribute to the cost. What sort of funds are you looking at?
So last year, and I apologize, I'm gonna look this up this morning. We got $3,000 or $5,000 donation to the township for helping out with the lights and stuff last year. Some of the things that we're gonna talk about in the other delegations is where we're gonna help out with the costs on stuff. This one, not so much. This one is more, we lost our bullpen when the upgrades were done here, and kind of this one be something that we're hoping that you guys could help us out
I
on.
might pause and just actually go to the director, because you're making some statements. I just want to, before we get too far down, to ensure that the
I asked
director.
a question of staff as far as my notes, it was told it was a statutory requirement to have that.
Oh, no, I just meant if the director is supportive of having bullpens where
Oh, I
the
see.
delegation is suggesting, and if I'd like to hear from him if he has or some new concerns that come up. So Mr. Feller, if you're able, give us some insight on those bullpens or high level concerns at this point.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, approximately a couple weeks ago, I had a meeting with Councilor Bailey and Cameron Tuck in regards to the proposals. Initially, there were no concerns. I was in favor, all pending on cost, obviously. The thing I will note is that there will be additional costs for an electrician to come out and at least locate the underground power lines for the light towers. They could be right underneath the potential bullpens. So that is probably a cost of at least $700-800 just to have an electrician come out and locate those power lines. So that's one cost that I didn't foresee until I started looking at it closer. The other is I wasn't aware of the need for gravel to be the length of the bullpen. Again, as long as the understanding's there that if weeds start to grow, like we are limited to our resources as far as how we control the weeds. So if this becomes an issue where the gravel now becomes infested with weeds, there's not a lot we can do, and I certainly don't have the resources to start picking them.
So on that, for warm up, sorry, councilors, but do you necessarily need gravel? Like, can't the pitcher just pit as long as there's a mound in the ground? Or why does it need gravel?
Here's, yeah, we could get away with that too. I just think the gravel is just for the small area it is. It's not a lot on that side of things, and I guess that's kind of where I'm looking at it. It's normal to have gravel. All the kids pitch from gravel when they're warming up. It's their motion. If they're dragging their feet, it's a little different it's a lot different on grass than it is necessarily on the gravel. And with our pitching style, it's definitely like that, for sure. Hey, can we live without it? Yeah, we can live without it. It's just, yeah, as I said, we just don't have a warm up place right now.
I just want to hear from staff. Sorry to interrupt, Councilor Schools, but
Yeah, the one slide you show 8x10 fencing, are you saying you need a fence, 8 feet high, like 10 feet or 35?
Yeah, Courtney, do you mind if you go back to, I think it's the first, I think it's one of the first two pictures, first two slides that I had. You always make it easy to go forward on slideshows, but never easy to go back.
Yeah,
Right there.
Yeah,
That's about the size we want. Yeah, sorry, go back one more, Courtney.
Well, leave this one here, this is the one.
Okay,
It's
gotcha.
35 feet, so you're saying you need 35 feet of fencing?
No,
Oh.
35 feet space from
Oh, I
the 10
see.
feet of gravel to the fencing at the
So the
end.
fencing is at the far end of this.
Okay,
pole.
the 8
Is that what you're
by 10,
saying?
gotcha, okay,
Yeah, it's
gotcha.
a
Oh,
small amount of fencing that we're requiring.
I see, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, this is not the one. There's another one coming up, which we'll talk about fencing, but this is the one right here. That it's small, just so to stop errant balls from flying through. Because our pitchers right now, John, they're getting older.
Counselor Sepoulis.
Sorry, Mr. Councilor Sepoulis, is the fact that it is a far distance, but our pitchers are getting stronger. So what we're seeing is our U13, U15s, especially U13s, we have 3 of the best pitchers in the ISA county, and they're throwing fast and hard, and we're just afraid of anything getting away and hitting.
And similarly, on the opposite, leg of the, diamond, you don't need any fencing there, just a backstop.
Just a backstop, yeah, that's all we're asking on that side.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Counselor Hurst?
I really don't have any questions. It seems very straightforward from my standpoint. I think you need facilities that are top notch if you want to run top notch programs. So the timelines of it, I guess, is up for discussion.
Yeah.
No, this is good. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Counselor Goida?
Yeah, just since we have this slide up right now, in terms of the gravel that you're looking for, so is it understood that the bullpen is 35 feet in length? Is that right? But you only need 10 feet of gravel?
Just need a small patch of gravel.
That's for the pitching pitcher?
Yeah, and if I can add to Mike's comment there, like, we'll rake it.
That
We'll,
was gonna be my next question. Can you round up volunteers to do the weeding if it's
so we have done that in the past. I know the men's senior team has been excellent. That's the Kodiaks at going out usually on a yearly basis. It's something that we're gonna do in one of the other slides coming out, one of the other delegations. We're gonna talk a little bit more on that side too. Thank you.
Quick question for our director, Mr. Fowler. Including the locates, and the gravel, do you have a rough idea of what this would cost to put in?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as of this time, I do not. I was waiting for this delegation just to kind of clarify the exact desires of Puslin Minor Ball. I will indicate that due to our fairly heavy workload this year, this will all have to be done by an external source. Staff do not have the time or the resources to implement this for this year.
Would it be reasonable to say somewhere in the range between $5,000 and $10,000, this could be completed by an external contractor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would say that's a very fair estimate. Depending upon, you know, the exact pricing of fencing and labor, installation of home plates for each bullpen, whatever trimming of trees has to be done, things like that to facilitate the construction and also the locates for the hydro towers. So again, I think that's, to summarize, it's a very fair estimate.
And do you think it's reasonable? Is this too short? Like, do you think it would be reasonable for a contractor to be able to complete that? But by the start of this season, I'm not sure when the season starts, but
May 12th.
in a month?
Yeah.
Without speaking for potential contractors, you know, this is something that can be the start of communication, starting next week, just to see contractor availability and interest.
Okay, and then, I had asked the question in our, advanced questions, whether this could be DC funded, and our director of finance said because this is new, not a replacement, it could be DC funded, so I would support, $5,000 to $10,000 to be funded through DCs to be able to get this in for this year. I think, like you said, it's something you had before that you kind of now don't have used to have. We've already, made this ball diamond, already put in a big investment into this ball diamond, we might as well, not leave it with a bullpen that nobody can use. So I would support getting this done, and if we can do it for this year, I would be in favor.
I'll come back to you.
Just a question of staff, finance. Will the DC funding cover something like this in the order of 5 to 10K, or is it a percentage of the 5 to 10K?
My understanding is that we currently have a bullpen there, so whatever the increased cost is associated with the second bullpen would be DC eligible.
The entire full amount?
Of the
There-
second one.
The second one.
Oh, entire, okay.
So the first, you'd have to divide the project. The replacement or moving, or you can term it, of the original bullpen would not be DC eligible. You'd probably have to use parkland dedication monies. And then the second one, which is not that one, would be eligible for DCs.
Just question of staff, would the replacement be eligible for parkland, from the parkland dedication?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Since I'm spicy, I'm gonna take an opportunity to correct you.
Sorry.
By the way, I'm reading a book of a World War II veteran. He's a 29 ace, over ace, and his last name's Tuck. So unfortunately, I have to think of you every time I pick up my book. The ball diamond wasn't owned by Minor Ball. It was owned
Okay.
by the old timers.
Okay.
They were just a group of fellows that played
Yeah.
baseball out of there, and then they donated it to the township.
Yeah.
And you said it was the women's washroom. It's the men's washroom that we pitched for.
You're right, that is the men's one.
That was kind of correct. You. Originally, I was going to persuade council to only give you one backstop, because I was wondering about our batting cage. The visitors could use that, if we did it needs some, maintenance. But the fence is good, but the lighting's a problem. That dawned on me, it'd be more money to probably put lighting, so. I'd be supportive of the second or the two backstops. I would like you as an organization to reach out, I can give you a contact, to aggregate producers and ask them for a donation of the screenings. I have been contacted about the warning track at Meadows, for getting some additional screening, so I feel we have an opportunity to get some engagement from our aggregate producers, and I think it would be a great photo op to have Minor Ball, even the mayor there, and give the aggregate producers some good press for once. So yeah, that would also bring down the costs. Originally, I thought you were gonna put the backstop close to the bleachers. I had concern with that, but that clarifies that that's the other direction. I think that's all I have. Are you, Mr. Fowler? And Cam, I'll go to him first. Mr. Fowler, my understanding is these LEDs, they're excellent because they don't have light pollution. It's quite the change in my home when the lights are on. It's something you can't tell, but it's nowhere near as obvious when those lights are on versus those old halogens or whatever they were. So are we confident that there's enough light there to provide lighting for the pictures? Mr. Fowler?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I don't have any knowledge of if the current light towers will light the proposed bullpens. I know the photometric design that was done at the time only included lighting the actual ball playing field. So I haven't been privy to being at the ballpark at night when the new lights have been on. So this time I can't answer that.
So I guess my thing to you, Mr. Tuck, would be that, support for the bullpens as presented. If, I'd hate for you to have to come back and say, oh, now we need lighting, but in my mind, there's alternatives. Maybe it's a solar powered light that, you know, charges a battery in the day and.
Yeah.
and so, because running wires and putting new pole would be very expensive, so.
Yeah.
Supporting the installation of the pole fence, but the lighting is a different annual. So, but yeah, so we'll engage the community for, I'll go back to Councillor Goya. I don't know if you want to put a motion forward to. So that these.
Yeah, sure, we install two new, well, replace and install a new bullpen, funded through DCs and parkland dedication. And if possible, prior to the start of this baseball season,
To a maximum of.
a maximum of $10,000.
And then can I ask you to put in there that Wilson Schmeyer Ball work with local companies for donations?
Sure.
Mr. Fowler, anything around that resolution that we should add or you feel concerns about?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, not at this time. I think it's a project that could be completed, within the projected timelines. And at this time, I have no other concerns.
So Councillor, go ahead and move that. Can we get a second from the special Councillor Spose? Right, you go first.
Yeah, with respect to this weeding, is that a serious concern, Mr. Fowler? Weeding the gravel base?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it is a challenge to continually provide a weed-free warning track, ball, infield and surrounding areas, due to the limitations of our weed control through the province is that, without basically hand picking, it's, very difficult to provide a weed-free gravel base. So it is a quite strenuous activity for.
Would something like putting down a geotextile material before we put the gravel on help?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the geotextile wouldn't really work due to the active play on the gravel surface. And most weeds are a couple centimeters deep with their root base. So, they're the type of thing that in the past we used to treat with chemical, and obviously that's prohibited now. So it's basically, we try to drag as frequently as possible to try and discourage the weeds from gaining root.
So, you know, I think it's appropriate to, even in the motion, put in that it's understood that the maintenance of the pitching dugouts falls
That
on.
was gonna be my suggestion, yeah. So, Councillor Goyer, if you accept the friendly motion that we ask the baseball, people to, maintain or weed the gravel area to ensure the integrity of that, pitching area.
Yes, I would agree with that. Is it strictly Wilson Schmeyer Ball that would use those, or is it?
But we be the ones, we're the maintenance, so go to us.
So we would have to direct.
It'd just be nice to have it in writing. It's understood.
That's okay. So that's all the questions.
Who seconded it? Did you second it?
I seconded.
Oh, yeah. That's you,
Good.
obviously.
Good.
Sorry, Councillor.
Get it, support.
Councillor Goyer?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so all in favor on that one? Carried. Okay, next item, Mr. Tuck.
I will pass this off to my colleague and I'll chime in at the end of this one.
Karen, I'll be nice. I promise.
My name is Karen Joho. I'm a resident of Morris, Ontario. We're starting, we're trying to open the concession stand at Old Morrison Ballpark. We're working with public health. I did attach the email on the back of this, my first email with them regarding the opening. They are requesting the floor plan. So the floor plan is necessary for public health compliance to ensure the concession stand meets all health and safety regulations. Having an accurate floor plan will enable us to design the layout in a way that promotes cleanliness, efficient food preparation, and proper sanitation practices. The importance of transparency in operating the concession stand by providing the floor plan to public health authorities. We demonstrate our commitment to operating in compliance with regulations and ensuring the well-being of customers and staff. Having the floor plan readily available will streamline the inspection process for public health officials. This will save time for both Pushland Minor Ball Association and the township, allowing the concession stand to reopen more quickly and efficiently. The concession stand will serve the community, providing refreshments, snacks for players, spectators, and volunteers during baseball games and events such as tournaments. Access to safe and properly managed concession stand enhances the overall experience for everyone involved in baseball activities. The economic impact of reopening the concession stand, both for Pushland Minor Ball and the local community. A well-operated concession stand can generate revenue that can be reinvested into Pushland Minor Ball Association and contribute to the local economy. So this is more of like a partnership between Pushland Minor Ball and the township in promoting public health and community well-being. Our willingness to collaborate and work together to ensure the concession stand meets all necessary requirements. I feel I've made a strong case for why council should approve the release of the floor plan for the existing concession stand at Old Morrison Ball Diamond, facilitating its reopening and operation in compliance with public health regulations.
Okay, so, I don't believe we have a floor plan for it, because as I stated earlier, it wasn't ours when they built it. So, my question to staff would be, if we've had dealings with the health department, the floor plan, does it have to be an official, not a survey, but, or can it be a sketch?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I don't think it needs to be like a surveyed work. Staff can certainly look into having something prepared.
Hold on, don't commit us to stuff yet.
I
I
did.
don't like to interrupt.
No, I did have another comment, which, staff are hoping to have the opportunity to report back on this to council. And just to work a little bit more with Pushland Minor Ball, specifically around, whether this is intended to be exclusive use of this facility by Pushland Minor Ball, or if it's going to be available to some of our other user groups that may want to use it. I don't believe we have a rental fee associated with this structure. So there's a number of questions that I think staff want to investigate a little bit more related to the use.
Sure.
Can I get you to move to the slide and I will show you our gong show? And I will talk to you a little bit. Keep going, please.
Should get there.
Right there.
Oops.
That's fine. That one's good. Right there. Perfect. Right now, all of our stuff is in there. Now, the challenge that we have right at the moment was also when we did the upgrades, or when the upgrades happened with that diamond, we used to have a shed that was right behind home plate. And that stored all the bases that you can see down there. There's another picture, you'll see like rakes and shovels, the chalk and everything else. It all got put in here. And then with the growth of our ball the last couple of years, we've had to put stuff in here as well. So like all the milk crates and the clear totes that are up there, that stores a lot of our stuff for the winter in there. We used to keep everything at the green barn or and
Green barn is blue.
yeah,
We
this
all
one now.
call it green.
I know, it's because it's ingrained in our heads. The blue barn now, but it's not appropriate for us because almost every team, Pushland Minor Ball plays out of Old Morriston except for one this year. And so we have everything down there, so it's at our fingertips. When we spoke with Mike Fowler on this before, we were actually talking about going to you and having the shed rebuilt. And then Mike and I got talking about things. It was Mike's idea of just, can we not do some type of locker in there instead to keep everything locked up? So I'm getting to Courtney, here's stuff on everything, is if we do that, we're gonna pay for that. So going back to Councilman Sepulis's comment earlier, we're gonna pay to have a locker put in there that's locked up so that our stuff is not being stolen. Last year, we had unfortunately balls, bats, and bases stolen because the rental of the facility includes keys for the washrooms, which also includes the keys for this room.
And it has to,
It has
because the
to.
light switch for the washrooms is in this one.
Yes.
So you can't turn the lights on without getting access to this, so
Yes.
it's.
So we understand that. So, and we know that using this facility for our storage is a bonus. We know that you don't have to do that, but it just makes our life so easy when we have, it's 140 kids and we have to store the equipment there. So it makes a big difference for us, but this is what we want to clean out. We're gonna pay for the painting. We'll do the painting inside. We'll probably put our logo inside somewhere. Usually we have the banner hanging up in there as well. But that's kind of what we're kind of leaning towards with that side of things as well. And we will pay for anything that we do inside of that and run it by. But it's just basically gonna be a locker that is put in there, just.
Back to the health department. I don't know where the threshold is that triggers, whether it's a permit from the health department, but if you could speak to that, is the intent to sell, if this all gets worked out, just coffee? And I remember buying, like Swedish berries out there when I was a kid. I was only getting like the black ones, and the ladies would put them aside for me. Anyways, so I think if it's prepared food, there's maybe a different level. So can you just speak to what you want to potentially sell out of there and why the health department has to be involved?
It's, so it's only prepackaged foods, like, prepackaged muffins, chips, chocolate bars, freezies, pop, things like that. They have sent me a list of things that we don't need because we're not preparing food there. I'm working with Olivia. She's the new health inspector, for our area. We wouldn't need like a hand sanitization, like, there's just a list she had sent me. Kind of like a guideline on how to get this ready for her. So yeah, right now, as of right now, because we're starting, we're only doing prepackaged foods right now.
So in regards to the floor plan, I feel that you as an organization can go measure it, sketch it, provide it to Mr. Fowler.
Okay.
Mr. Fowler can validate that, and hopefully that would be sufficient for the health department. So then our role is just validating what's drawn, if that's even needed. Mr. Fowler, would you be comfortable with them providing you a sketch for your critique per se?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, I'm happy to review it.
And then, so, Ms. Hoyfox, I would hate to have to charge organizations to rent this building, but can you just maybe repeat what staff would like to see out of this component of the delegation? You mentioned about reporting back to council or something.
Yes, so through Mr. Chair, I think that we would like an opportunity to just report back on the usage of this facility, and what that looks like. Just having a better understanding from an operational perspective, how we want to manage that. Who has access to it? Is it just going to be our community groups? Is it going to be all renters? So I think we just need to have a better understanding of that, not necessarily to add user fees to it, but just to understand the operations behind it, with this being sort of used as something other than just storage.
I also want to say this earlier. I want to thank Mr. Fowler for allowing Minor Ball to use, and the other teams too. Because it's a similar situation at Meadows. Mr. Fowler had graciously allowed, I forget the name of the Wolfpack to store their items there, and I think, to me, I'd like to see the policy come back that the booth comes as part of the rental of the Diamond, and as long as they're in compliance with the health department and all that good stuff. You sell a few coffees to co-parents in the spring season or the fall season. That's just makes the experience better for everyone. But Mr. Fowler, you have your hand up.
Yes, if I may, Mr. Chair, if I may ask a question, just regarding the concession booth to Pusson's Minor Ball.
Yes, absolutely.
So I just for my reference, when it comes to the selling of beverages, and is your plan to keep them basically in portable coolers, or is the expectation one day to have a cooler or some type of fridge left in this facility?
We were actually going to, we were gonna donate one there,
A fridge.
Yes.
What are you talking about?
a fridge with a freezer, like just a standard size one.
And then put a lock on that so that we don't have to worry about anybody getting into it to do our best.
At both Diamonds or Meadows?
Right now, we're just looking at only solely Morriston, Old Morriston right at the moment. The other one, there's some things that will have to be done with the other one. We haven't even crossed that bridge. This is just the starting one.
Okay, does that lead to more questions, Mr. Fowler, or?
Just a comment through you, Mr. Chair. I would have warn that because this facility is not heated in the winter, any type of major appliances will run the risk of freezing if left there. So the majority of our coolers are obviously in the PCC where the building is heated. So as long as the understanding is that once the commencement of ball in the fall, the township wouldn't be responsible for any damage to a fridge or cooler due to the freon or anything freezing.
Well, we could put into the agreement, rental agreement or something, there's an understanding that the fridge is emptied and prepared for fall storage. So I don't know if you prop the doors open up fridges or whatever you do, but another thought. Okay, all right, so I found, sorry, I just thought it'd be helpful. Councilor Bose?
Yeah, I agree with staff's idea of reporting back and reporting back includes all the issues that were discussed, such as the fridge, such as renting this as part of the ball diamond. Perhaps should be a minor surcharge because this includes it. If you want it rented with the concession stand, this charge, this fee. If you don't want to rent it without that, it's that fee. I would also like to see in the report the timing of all this. Obviously, we've got too much to do to get it done this year. So the timing for next year and any contribution that outlined in the report, any contribution that the all people will make, as well as any costs that we would incur.
Councilors?
This is good. I think it's supportive. This is like an evolving minor ball opportunity here. And I sense this is a potential revenue opportunity to add further funds to develop the program in the future. So this is all good in my mind. I think the only thing I would add to Councilor Zapoulis' comments would be as part of the staff report, any recommendations in terms of liability coverage or insurance coverage that is different than what a current rental agreement may be, because there are concession activities taking place, and I don't know what that is, but I think that would be an important sub note to have within that report. That's it for me.
Councilor Gordon?
Yeah, I'm in support of what I already said. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great idea. In terms of the health inspector, that's a pretty familiar world to me. I don't think that they're looking for a super technical floor layout. I think you can just sketch pretty much what's there. They will want to come and inspect it. They probably will not approve anything in that condition. So it'll have to be pretty cleaned up before they'll give any approval. But yeah, I don't know if that's something that, if they can be working on concurrently with your reporting back to us, so that if you do report back to us and say we can make it work, and they can hit the ground running, or if they need to wait. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that.
So with you, Mr. Chair, we will work with the delegates on the floor plan, like Mr. Fowler confirmed that he'll assist with that. We will aim to get a report back to council as soon as possible, knowing that we're looking to get the season started, and it shouldn't be too burdensome to report back on the list that council asked for.
Last comment is, there is an antique stove sitting in the corner.
You want it?
No, I don't want it thrown out.
Okay.
I would like it at least listed either by staff, or if staff would give permission to the delegate to list it for sale and put those proceeds towards the fridge. I just hate, it's quite old, and I think it would find a home somewhere to some collector or, so anyways, I just don't want to see it thrown out. Can I, and I don't know, technically, is it municipal property, I would assume?
I'm not sure, but we can look into it for sure.
Yeah, just don't throw it in the dumpster.
All yours.
I don't want
it. But no, I meant for the
Somebody
township.
else to have.
But the other thing is, the fridge is something that we are gonna pick up. That's something that the Business Maribel, we're not asking. I just want to clarify. That's what I was asking for. We want clarification on that. We'll pick up the fridge. The other thing was I just wanted clarification if it's okay if we go ahead with sprucing up the inside. Is that okay with?
That's with Mr. Fowler, or how do you normally deal with cosmetic?
Through Mr. Chair, what are we thinking with sprucing up? Is that the locker system? Is that the fridge, or is that just?
So yeah, so let's put it, let's do an itemized order there. Stove gone?
Well, why don't you suggest you discuss it offline?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rather than taking up time here.
And through Mr. Chair, I think there is some value in reporting back on the feasibility of the use of the stand first. Just so that we're not, going down a path if there are concerns raised.
I think the two topics are separate. The security of items that they're using for storage can be, as Councilor Lewis mentioned, dealt with offline, fresh paint in there. Staff can deal with that, but then the additional use definitely needs a report back. Is that a fair statement?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can take it offline for sure and think about that, yeah. The best steps, yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
How many more do you have? Let's go.
Next one's short, all yours.
Next one is a mobile sign. We are trying to, we've been talking to a couple of companies. We want to rent a mobile sign and put it on, just that front patch. We had a picture, but we didn't add it to the slideshow. Front patch of grass in front of the community center there where the actual sign is, where it says the new blue sign, Push Lunch Community Center, across from the old Village Restaurant. So the mobile sign will benefit the community. Important announcements related to Push Lunch Minor Ball Association relating to registration mainly. Increased visibility and reach. The mobile sign will provide, reaching a larger audience compared to traditional advertising methods. The mobile sign is temporary and can easily be moved or removed by the rental company, minimizing any potential impact on the aesthetics of the area. Push Lunch Minor Ball has a positive impact on the community, including promoting health and fitness among residents, providing opportunities for youth development, and fostering community spirit. So we did have a picture, but so number 5, just forget about that because the picture is not on the slideshow. So by addressing these points in my presentation, I hope council will approve the installation of the temporary mobile sign for a baseball association at the community center for approximately 1 month.
Staff, do we ever do this, and how does that affect us with our other communities?
So through you, Mr. Chair, there were permissions, and our director might be able to refresh my memory on the agreement that we had with the Aberfoyle Farmers Market. I believe they had permissions for signage at the PCC through an agreement with council. In general, the temporary signs are prohibited under our sign bylaw. That's mostly because of the sort of the way they look. They're sort of a less desirable looking sign. And they also can cause sightline issues because of their size. However, the township's property is not subject to the township sign bylaw. And I think the concern that we had raised related to the area just in front of the PCC where the sign would be proposed is there are other signage that's located there. The county puts up signs. So it may look a little busy. There may be concerns with that. I don't know if our director has anything else to add with the permissions at the PCC or township property in general for signage.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that is correct. Right now, the current signage we have on the patch of grass identified is our community center blue sign. Unfortunately, we still have the government signage for the Parks Master Plan that is still required to be erect. We also have the County of Wellington vehicle charging sign. So to me, it's becoming cluttered. There are sightline issues if we start adding more mobile signs. The concession that I had initially offered was to allow a mobile sign, but have it placed farther to the north on the other side of the parking lot in the green grass, kind of near the electronic sign.
Now, does that have, can that be dealt with staff to group, or does that mean council?
So through you, Mr. Chair, if we get direction today to incorporate that into the rental agreement for the Wilson Minor Ball, we can certainly incorporate that with the permissions for the sign.
What's the process for getting things on our ticker sign?
So that is something that's available to Wilson Minor Ball. So we can do that at any time. I know that sign doesn't always have the best visibility with the red writing and just the frequency that it filter sort of goes through the different messaging. We are looking down the road, as council is aware, at a better digital sign, so that certainly is going to improve things going forward.
Yeah, I'd like to leave this issue offline and let the staff deal with the proponent of thing and
The only thing she's mentioning is that, you might need direction that they incorporate those discussions into the rental agreement. Is that correct?
So through Mr. Chair, we did include it for, I believe, for Aberfoyle Farmers Market when they were operating. That was, I believe, council direction to incorporate into their rental agreement because this is something outside of what we would normally permit.
okay, so you want us, you need a motion for that? Okay, then I would suggest that, make the motion that, the sign be incorporated into the rental agreement with, such, minor goal.
Who's seconder? Some discussion, Councilor Hurst.
I'm supportive. I think, Mr. Fowler made some good points around, I think just visually driving by, there is a lot of signage, on that grass strip there. So I think, public safety being paramount, if there's an appropriate placing, I guess I'd leave that to township staff to best identify. And I think the only other comment I would have is the township sign there, just the minor ball work with the township to get some of your messaging up there, as best you can. Whether that's registration, promotion, what have you. It's a good opportunity in addition to the other signage. That's it.
That's good.
Question, do we have an idea, about the new, LED electronic sign? When we think that, I know it's not this year, but do we have an idea of when that may be put in?
Through Mr. Chair, our Director of Finance might have a better idea of timelines of that. I know there was fundraising component, I believe, to that initiative.
Yes, there was also a component associated with finding third-party funding, so we are on the lookout for third-party funding associated with that. It is something on the work plan, so I know it's also in the capital budget and forecast. I'm not sure exactly which year we put it as. I'm just looking at that right now.
That's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I was just wondering if it was. Thank you for refreshing that there's other components to that. I forgot about that. I really don't have an issue with it. I guess maybe the concern though is next thing is soccer will want to do the same thing, and then other groups will want to do the same thing. And then all of a sudden we're having to request for a whole bunch of mobile phones. So just maybe to be mindful of that. And I also just wanted to bring up, I don't know, I have no idea the cost on this or the feasibility, but when the Aberfoyle Farmers Market was up and running, they had a van wrapped with their advertising and they parked it at the Wilson Community Center. And I think that was a really effective way of them to advertise. So just some other ways, maybe thinking out of the box to get that advertising and that word out, but I have no issue with the suggestion actually.
Another thought, is it possible that we could push this on our website registration?
So through Mr. Chair, we do have our community groups page that we are continuously improving, so we can work with our community groups, and we also have social media that we can reshare posts if you are looking for help sort of creating better awareness.
I think this is a good interim step. I do share your concerns that you should treat our community groups equally. So, we want to support soccer and the registration, but we also don't want we don't want to look like an election and have signs all over the place, right? So, I think the new sign is a priority, and I don't know if it was a misunderstanding or I'm misunderstanding it, but I agree that third-party funding was a component of the sign, but I don't feel that it meant the sign didn't move forward until we found that third-party, funding, especially with the recent contribution to the Parkland Education, reserve. There's funds available, so if mobile signs is what our ability to help our community groups, but the ultimate fix is bringing that LED sign forward, I'd like staff to take a look at that and say, you know what, instead of doing all these mobile signs, we just fund this sign from our Parkland Dedication, then we can make a policy on when people can use it, and we have less signs. Makes sense?
So through Mr. Chair, could we take staff take that back to look at for the upcoming budget cycle?
You don't need any resolution. So what we're gonna vote on is that incorporate the mobile sign into the rental agreement for Wilson Minor Ball. These fall comments to what I think.
There's agreements for, until the.
Yeah, that's key. If the sign goes up, then that gets removed from the agreement. How many rules we have, my password is enormous. Okay, so it's clear? All in favor of that one? What are we supposed to be doing on that?
Last one. Actually, Courtney, can you go back? I have 2 slides, 2 or 3 slides here. Please, thank you. The next one is we're gonna be talking about Morriston Meadows Small Ball Diamond. There is a need with our organization growing the last couple of years. We do need more diamond space. Right now, we have 10 teams renting diamond space right now, from just Puslinch Minor Ball. We can only play games Monday to Thursday night with Intercounty Softball Association. I get asked this question all the time, why? Well, the main reason is most softball organizations across Ontario play tournaments on weekends. So the associations try to run their leagues from Monday to Thursday nights. We're running tight on diamond space this year. We've worked with the township and the staff on some ideas, and I've bounced some ideas off them. We're fine for this year. The challenge is moving forward. How are we going to be? One of the things we came up was making the small diamond at Morriston Meadows usable, game usable. We've checked out everything. Again, this is something that Mike Fowler and I both discussed. The concern is how big the diamond is. So regulations for softball Ontario state that the minimum size for a ball diamond is 185 feet from home plate to the fences. So with measuring, we are fluctuating between 180 and 186 before we hit the grade that goes up. Courtney, I think you turn the next slide and it does show the outfield, the other picture, I think. Yeah, so you can see the grade there. So when you hit there, it's hitting around 181. So we're darn close. We don't need a fence out there. We don't want a fence out there. There's no requirement for having a fence in the outfield. So can we get away with playing on this field on that side? That's definitely doable for us, especially for the age groups of U11 and U9. It gets a little dicey at the U13 age group, but in a pinch, we can make it work. Our challenge with this diamond, Courtney, if you move to the next slide, please, is this. We have no fence in front of the players' benches. So our challenge here is if a kid's up to bat and it's wet or even not wet at the young age, the bat can go flying. The other thing is foul balls or just straight thrown balls over there. Last thing we ever want is a kid getting getting hit by anything, but especially in the face. We've seen it in my lifetime a couple times. It's no good. What we're recommending, we don't need a gate on this, okay? We're trying again to keep our expenses low on this. We're looking at somewhere around a 20-foot fence just to go in front of both benches. You're probably looking at 2 to 3 posts. And then I think if you switch to the next slide, yeah, same thing on this side as well. It's about 20 feet measured off there, 20 to 24 feet, in which we need fencing to put that in there. And this would give us another diamond. A diamond that actually I think the township should and could rent and charge. Maybe not as much as what you charge the normal ones, but it is usable. And I know we'd be more than willing to pay the rent on that side of things. The other concern with this diamond, if you move to the next slide. One more, please. All right. There's North American Construction in the background there. That fence line, there's about a good 5-6 feet of sumac and wild grass and grapevines and everything growing on the fence. One of the things that we're proposing, and we would do the work detail on this, is we would like to clear out somewhere around 20 to 30 feet along that fence line so it's clear. The purpose, if you move to the next slide, Courtney, is our bleachers back there. Now, this is a great picture. I should have taken one of these in the summer. It is the dark abyss behind home plate back there. It is covered in because the trees are so dark in there. But the problem with those bleachers is they're not in bad shape. They just look a little rough because of the moisture that's sitting in there. They never drain out. It's dark and dingy. What we'd like to do is once we get that side cleared up, is just pick it up, move it over there, make sure it's level. If you guys need to have someone come in and double check, great. But just to move it out to give us another place for parents to sit on that side would be great. And sitting back, no one will sit back there. It's just gungy and moist and everything else. Clearing up the side would do it. And we will put the manpower and labor into that side of doing things as well. Let me just double check my notes on this. Oh, the other thing is, before I forget, at the end of both lines, both foul lines, we do not need fencing all up the way, but we do need a foul pole on both sides, just probably an 8-foot foul pole at both ends, about 180 to 200 feet out on both sides, marked white, so that our poor umpires can make a judgment call and not get yelled at when they can't have a foul line to follow down there. So that's it. The concern is right now, we use our T-ballers and we use our 3-pitch players. They go down, they use it for skill development. We don't play any league games per se down there. But if we were to play any games down there right at the moment, the concern would be insurance issues and if we would even be covered in a situation like we talked about.
What are the needs for this year versus the needs that can happen through the budget cycle at the end of this year, next year?
So the needs for having it this year goes, and it's a great question. Last year, we had air quality issues. Last year, we had rain issues. Last year, Old Morriston, hopefully we won't have it this year, had a drainage issue for about 1 week. So we started off in May and June, about 6 to 7 games behind schedule, and we played catch up all year. The challenge last year was we were struggling to find times during the week to get makeup games in. We had no time for any practices for our kids last year because we had to take all our practice time and use it for rescheduling. This year, we're even tighter with probably adding 2 more teams to our Puslinch minor ball this year. Not to mention, I know that there is some other teams looking at playing in the area as well and wanting more time in the space.
So what do you need for this year?
This year, with the fencing in front of the benches would be huge from on the first base side and on the third base side, 20 feet of fence covering in front of the benches. So it makes that diamond usable.
I think you need that till next year.
Sorry?
But you didn't need the fence till next year to play the games.
It's one of those ones, we're on the, just as I just said here now, the biggest concern is if we get anything like air quality and rainouts again, we're gonna be really tight to get it in.
So then you need the foul pole and the fence extensions this year.
Yeah.
And you can, okay, and then I guess concurrently you can work on clearing the fence with the permission of the director.
Yeah.
And possibly the bleachers. Okay, just was.
Yeah, question of staff, is this DC and or parkland funded? This work, those works, the fencing and the foul ball post?
The replacement of the fencing is Parkland Education funded.
Or wouldn't the fencing be DC eligible since it's new?
Yes, yes. Any new fencing would be DC eligible.
Question of you.
Yes.
With respect to the 185 requirement versus the 181 you have. Is that a serious impediment?
No, it won't cause any challenges for insurance purposes for us on that side of getting insurance. Especially the U11 and U9s, no problems there at all.
So I'd like to move the motion that we look at implementing the fencing and the ball posts this year to make use of this facility for league games. That's my motion.
Oh, sorry, I was distracted. Sure, apologize. The chief walked in, I was all flustered. The new chief, I'm sorry. So let's motion, we need a seconder for that, please. Councilor Goida. Okay, discussion. Councilor Hurst.
I'm supportive of Councilor Sepulveda's recommendation. I think these are good problems to have, right? You need more ball space. Like, this seems pretty minor on the grander scheme. You're not building a brand new diamond. You're not looking for space. This is utilizing what's there, adding the safety to it. I think this makes total sense. So,
Councilor Goida.
Yeah, I'm supportive as well. I would like to perhaps just ask our director if, again, if this is a project that he'll have to undertake to do, is that feasible to have done this year, or does he foresee any concerns, issues, delays? Just to get some input on our director.
For you, Mr. Mayor, again, because there's several proposals for the same type of work. The contractor that will be contacted will be asked to give quotes for both locations.
And yeah, but I didn't support.
Yeah, there was another comment made on changing the hours of operation. Understand that staff are willing to report back on that. In other words, get 2 games in one night as opposed to 1 game in the night.
So for you, Mr. Chair, I have that captured in, sort of the resolution to receive, the delegation that we are reporting back on a number of things, and one of them will be the scheduling.
Question for the Director of Finance. That little fence that's existing there, is it identified in the asset management plan? And if so, when is it scheduled for replacement?
Sorry, if you just give me a few minutes and I can look into that.
Okay, so you do that while I got another question. Why can't we move the bleachers? So what's cheaper? Move the bleachers down the side. Maybe they need the fencing as well, but besides that component, move the bleachers and then put new players benches behind the existing fence.
Courtney, can you pull that up? Let's just have a look at that. And I'm not
There
saying,
might not be enough room.
I don't think there's enough room. That's,
It-
I go back. Yes, please. Sorry. One more. That might not be it.
It's only one pole.
Yeah, that's probably your best one there. It's gonna still be tight. For your the end there. And again, we are dealing with young kids. And when you're dealing with U9, U11, sometimes it's like, part of the expression is it's like herding kittens down there. So if we can have that fence down, it's just more convenient.
Well, I get it's more convenient, but I'm trying to be fiscally responsible.
Yeah. I know. That's why I said, no, we don't need a gate. Just let them run around the end. They need the exercise runaround. But I think you're too tight at the very end. Like if you took that bench right there and you moved it down between the first 3 poles there is what I'm understanding you're asking.
I don't think it'll work either anyways. Actually, we put extensions at Old Morriston to, remember they raised it to
Yeah.
block the viewing stands.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if it would be permissible or even wise to put the bleachers there without the fence anyways.
Okay.
Still though, the replacement of that backstop, I'm sure it's relatively fine, but I'd hate to be putting extensions on and then coming back a year or 2 later to. So I just want to make sure that that backstop is in decent condition.
Sure.
So I think staff can just take that away. Miss Mary, did you find it if it was identified?
Yeah,
in the
so
estimate?
the fencing for all of our parks is incorporated in our asset registry. However, it is, the date that fencing was installed I don't have at my fingertips right now, because like it is an ongoing process in terms of updating that data, so the fencing is incorporated, but the date that it was installed is not.
I would hazard to guess that it was installed when the park was built, which was 94. So what, can you reread the resolution, please, just?
Yes, the council directs staff to report back on the detailed costing of fence extensions at the Morriston Ball Diamond to protect the player benches and foul poles to be funded through, or to be funded by the development charges. And I did make note of an upset limit, but I don't know what that is. And that council authorized Coastal Minor Ball to work with staff to remove the vegetation along the fence line and relocate the bleachers.
So that backstop's 30 years old. I think staff should look at it. If we're having a contractor come up, it's gonna drive the price up. We should at least look at it to see if has ample lifespan left in it that we can put wings on it. But I would definitely just identify that when you come back or whatever's happening.
So through Mr. Chair, to clarify, did you want us to proceed with this to an upset limit, or would you like us to bring back detailed costing?
If the backstop is in good condition, I don't see why you couldn't proceed with the fencing.
I'm comfortable with that. I just want staff to look at it. Or even if it's able to be replaced at a later time is fine as well. So what's the upset limit? You said that.
No, I didn't set that. I think, along the lines of what we said on the other place, Councilor Doyle mentioned, 5 to 10, again, 5 to 10.
So upset limit of 10.
Okay.
2 seconds again. 1 and 2 seconds. You're comfortable with that? Yeah.
It wasn't me, so it's easy to.
Easy math there. Watching, hoping for Councilor Bailey to get back. Okay.
One more.
Okay. Last one.
Okay. One other one?
Yeah,
Oh, let's
last
vote on this. Don't
Sorry.
hijack my meeting. All right, so any further comments? Okay, all in favor? That's carries. All right, last one.
Sorry, just trying to speed it up. Last one, this is not a request. We're trying to work with you guys on this. We would like some direction on this one. Here's one of the challenges we had. It was we started looking out for Diamond Space outside of Puss Lynch this year if we needed it, because we thought it'd be good to have a backup plan. What we did is we went to Guelph. Good luck. We're trying to find Ball Diamond in Guelph right at the moment. It's impossible. They have a system in place in Guelph right now where their minor ball gets first pick on everything. Out here, we don't. We have a situation out here is if you've been renting from us for so many years, you get that, it's automatically your spot to basically lose. You have to give it up. And it's a tricky situation. This is why I didn't know where to go with this, is why I'm here. What the proposal I was throwing at is, because we have over 75% of our kids that are playing in Puss Lynch Minor Ball, which is, I think, is a great number, and that was in 2023. And again, we're okay for this year, but we really don't have a plan in place. What do we do if we want to keep growing as a minor ball? What I would love to see is that any of the township teams, whether it's minor ball or whether it's the old timers, whether it's the Wolf Pack, whether it's the women's team, that we get first dibs out here, for lack of better words. And then if other renters need it, then they get it after a certain date. So you give us maybe a certain date is kind of what I'm thinking of to rent. Now, that's not fair to the teams that are already renting here. So I would recommend that maybe we grandfather that this idea that I'm trying to propose or trying to work with you guys on for the future. So the teams that are already in here, they get grandfathered with that exception, but any new teams coming in, they need to be explained that maybe it'll be on a year-to-year basis. They aren't guaranteed that Puss Lynch ball teams get first crack at it. Or pun. First crack at the diamond rentals here in here. I guess I'm looking for more for feedback from council on this, and is this something that's justifiable for us to be asking for when other associations, like other townships around us, are doing that at this present time?
So what I'm hearing is, the township is currently recognizing your organization, and if you historically had a date
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
That's ours.
It's yours.
Yeah.
So. The change, if one need be, is that because you're saying you're supporting grandfathering in if another organization has a Wednesday. So the only change in my mind that needs to happen, if at all,
Yeah.
is that if Wednesday becomes available,
Yeah.
you guys are the first call.
Yes.
Because after that initial change, then it would default to how we've been operating, giving you first crack at it.
No, that's where I'm saying the change does occur. So now a new renter comes in from Guelph, let's say. And now they say, okay, we got this year, okay, but that shouldn't be guaranteed anymore like it is right now.
But the diamonds are full.
At the moment, but I'm saying if.
So at the moment, so as soon
Yeah.
as they're not full.
Yeah.
Next year,
Yeah.
Thursday comes available, you get first call.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be available to the Guelph team that you just use as an
Exactly,
example.
exactly.
So all we need to do is put in place, and I had to equate this similar to our soccer fields. If outside organization was coming in to rent our soccer fields, I would expect that, the first call would be to, if there was availability to the soccer organization.
Mhm.
So maybe I'm misunderstanding it, but to me, I think that if a date comes available from a historic renter that no longer wants to continue that relationship.
Yeah.
That the minor,
Yeah.
community organizations get the first
Yeah.
ask. Does that not solve it, or am I just not understanding them?
So through Mr. Chair, I think that that's being described accurately, and staff can certainly report back on changes that would be required to our certain current practices to sort of formalize that.
Because you're supporting grandfathering people that have their dates now, there's gonna be financial implications to that. because it's
I know,
minor
that's-
ball,
and that's
it's a
why I'm-
significant discount, so council will be cognizant of that, but.
And just so I'm clear on this. But if a new team comes in, so say next year, we don't need the Thursday night, but the Guelph team does come in. What I was saying is that the following year, I don't believe they should get.
First, you're saying.
That's where my change in the wording is.
That's a tough one.
I know, and I sound like, I don't mean to sound like a jerk on it, it's just, that's how they work it in the other communities, right?
So
So,
you're hearing that, you can report back, right?
Yeah, that was gonna be my suggestion, Mr. Mayor, so let's put out in the notes, it's staff to report back on the sides, that's advice them to do.
The other component is, I feel it's a conversation we need to have at some point, is we have development proposals, whether they're supported at the county or not is another discussion. However, historically, Whistler has been leaning towards the parkland dedication, collecting fees. So at some point, I feel we need to hear from staff if there's a need to deviate from that historically, this might make Mr. Fowler cringe a bit because there's more maintenance involved, more parks, but at some point, instead of taking the fees, if we have these developments, are we gonna be asking for another soccer field, another baseball diamond, a tennis court? I don't know. But I'd like staff to report back at some point on that, because I do know there's some developments on the horizon. That's an important decision to be made. Okay, so I don't know if you take that as a takeaway or.
Through Mr. Chair, we are looking at our design standards and guidelines. We are also having this discussion with our consultant as it relates to our DC bylaw and what the expectations are around that. So it's a discussion that's ongoing right now and will be in front of council sometime this year.
I'm good with, also just, staff reporting back on, ask the delegate. That's
That's all I have.
Ms. Hurst?
Yeah, I think this is pretty straightforward. Maybe my one thought would be is maybe this is worthy of a larger conversation at the rec committee with all of
that's
the
good.
minor sports groups, because we're obviously having one conversation with baseball, but there's a lot of others, and I think this, I don't want to throw this on you, Counselor, going to unsurprisingly, but I think it's worthy of a larger conversation. I think it's important that you brought it up, but this impacts a lot of other people. And I think the last piece, and the mayor noted this, if I recall, a delegation at one point from Bruce Joy from the minor soccer,
Yes.
they talked about the future development needs
Yeah.
of the soccer club, and I would encourage minor baseball to have, you know, within your executive committee to have a thought process around what's the next 5 years look like for a really robust local sports program and what your needs may be, because I think that ponytailed well into the mayor's comments around future development within the municipality around what's the needs
Yeah.
for minor baseball and soccer and everything else. And I think if you give that some thought and then present that at some point, I think it would be very well received.
We'll definitely take you up on that and present in front of rec committee. I love that idea. Thank you.
Is there
I have a motion that's captured just a few things that didn't get picked up. Yep. The council received the delegation by Cameron Tuck and Karen Joel regarding business minor baseball. And the council direct staff to report back related to their request for the use of the concession stand at Old Marston Baseball Diamond, including the concerns raised during the council meeting. And the council direct staff to assist Kristen Finer Ball with the preparation of the necessary floor plan for a public health inspector. The council direct staff to investigate the sale of the old stove currently located in the concession stand. And finally, the council direct staff to include the delegate concerns regarding field scheduling and the township's practice for rental requests for leagues and report back to council, and to include comments and recommendations from the recreation committee.
move it, please? Can first, anybody else, close comments?
Yeah, could I didn't get to speak on the last.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
That's good, bouncing all over the place.
I just wanted to, ask when staff report back on the feasibility of the, sort of the first right of refusal thing and, what maybe other municipalities are doing in terms of allowing their local groups first crack at the rentals. It would be also helpful to understand, for instance, you mentioned in Guelph, the Guelph youth groups get first dibs at the rental. Are those groups also getting those rentals at the discounted rate similar to the way we are, or do they have a different price structure? Because I think, not that I'm in disagreement that youth groups get priority, but it could have financial impacts on rentals, and I think it would be good for us to understand that front. Thank you, councilors, for suggesting I go to the rec committee. I agree with that, and I appreciate being included in that. And then just in terms of also the comment about future development, we are looking at redoing our Parks Master Plan, not next year, but the year after. So I think sort of doing that work now and being an active participant in that Parks Master Plan will, same with our other youth groups and local groups, I think will just allow us to have a really good comprehensive plan as we go into sort of the next phase of park development in the town. Sorry.
No,
Yeah,
my fault, no, my apologies, and I agree with what you're saying too.
Thank you very, very much. We appreciate all the time you guys have spent with us today. It was much appreciated.
You did go over your 10 minutes as well. All right, so, all in favor to that? That's good.
Thanks, guys. That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're just waiting. Councilor Bailey walked in. I saw her face in the hall, so I'm just waiting for her to join us. Yes, please. No problem. All right, Mr. I'm gonna invite you down to the table, and we have enough seat for one other, so we could put more chairs other times. You want to bring the whole family down, put them on the hot seat. Sure. We get at least one down. The other two, that's fine.
I gotta get a chair. Oh, I'm sure Anna's very happy about that.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah.
No, it's not hard to tell.
You'll see the family.
Not at all.
Welcome, everyone.
The oldest was here, you'd say the same thing. He's identical.
Well, thank you for joining us today, and Ms. White Fox has some formalities to go through, and then we will do Want to do the formalities first or introductions?
To the introductions first.
Okay, well, I'll start. Welcome, Gene Seeley, Mayor of Plus Lunch, and we'll just go in the order that we were.
Hi, how you doing? Welcome to the hot seat. I'm Councilor Johnson Poulos.
Nice to meet you.
You're,
I'm Counselor Sarah Bailey, welcome.
Counselor Russell Hurst, welcome.
Thank you.
And Counselor Jessica Boyden, welcome. Happy to have you here.
Thank you.
you want to use your,
So obviously Jamie McNeil, this is my wife Brenda, our daughter Montana, and my son Drew, and then
Our son. You
our
said
son.
our daughter,
Yeah.
my son.
You're welcome.
excellent. Well, thank you for coming here today and Ms. Whitebox.
Yes, so we do have our appointment bylaw, which we'll be reading today, and we have a copy of it for you to take with you as well.
Thank you.
So that the following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2024-030, being a bylaw to appoint Jamie McNeil as the fire chief for the corporation of the township of Plus Lunch.
You can move for that. Councilor Hurst, seconded by Councilor Sibilis. Anybody opposed? All in favor? So welcome to the township of Plus Lunch.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the position. We're excited to have you on board. I've already ran into a few individuals and they're excited to have you on board from the fire department, which is great. I know it's a small family, you know, it's intertwined across Ontario. This is a big step for Plus Lunch. You know, to anytime we add staff, especially full-time staff, we have a small tax base, so for this council to take the fire department in that direction shows the support for you and for the fire department over there. I'm very excited for yourself in whether you're growing your career. Thank you again for choosing Plus Lunch to become a chief. What we've always said to our senior staff when they come in is don't leave, is that you will not be bored. Ms. Whitecross said I apologize, he'll probably work too much.
He always says.
Please, keep him in rein on that component. You know, I'm terrible for it, sending emails at all hours of the day, but we have, like, I have a young family, a bunch of people have young families here, except for Councilor Spoulos. And, we find time at night to work. We do not expect a response at 10 o'clock by any stretch of the imagination. So please do not work day and night. But there is definitely enough work left there to do that. But again, welcome to the township.
Thank
It's a
you.
great place to be. Very excited for you to be here. Very thankful for council supporting the adding of our first full-time chief. And, you know, let's just build that relationship and let's be successful together. So I don't know if there's anything further the councilors want to add.
No, it's just echo your sentiments, Mayor, I look forward to working with you.
No, and do you have something to say? or-
I'm good, thank you for your comments.
And if you want. Gene?
No, thank you very much for accepting me and choosing me. I'm excited. I'm well aware there's gonna be a lot of work to do. I've been working with Mr. Churchill very closely already, so we've met and gone back and forth, so just excited to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, and maybe not, I mean, I shouldn't put you on the spot, but I understand you have a background in fire and maybe you want to share a little bit of that?
So I'm in my 23rd year. So I started as a volunteer in the little small town of Beaton. Most people know where that is. About 15 years in as a volunteer, went career as a training officer, then from a training officer to a deputy chief, and now I'm excited to be the chief. My biggest passion in the fire service is gonna be the mental health side of it, so I've gone to school for it, so that's gonna be exciting for me to bring to not only the fire department, but the township. So it's not something that's usually looked at.
Yeah, it's at the forefront, especially at the full-time departments.
Yeah, yeah.
PTSD is being recognized more.
Yeah.
You know, maybe in the past, even a little way back, you know, forget the term they had for soldiers returning from.
Shell shock.
Shell shock,
Yeah.
but to me, being a layman, that was just PTSD and all they did is not talk about it, and probably drink.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the therapy back then, so it's definitely on the forefront of everybody that PTSD is a real thing and, you know, especially with the firefighters you're seeing, 401, you get it, so.
Yeah.
Awesome, so I believe we're gonna do a little,
This is for you. It's
I'll
just,
present it, I don't know if we need to, do we need to have
No, we
cameras
can-
on for?
we're breaking for lunch if you're all right with that, Mr. Chair.
Yes, we'll break for lunch and we'll do a little photo op, welcome back, Ms. Whitebox, you have a resolution for us, please?
I do have a resolution to bring us into closed session. So the shall go into closed session under section 239 of the Municipal Act for the purpose of a confidential report prepared by staff regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and that relates to a human resource matter, and a confidential report prepared by staff regarding a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on behalf of the municipality, and it relates to a contract. And confidential minutes from previous closed meetings, and those minutes are from the dates November 8th, 2023. We have two sets of closed meetings, November 28th, December 13th, and December 20th, all from 2023.
Excellent. We got a move for that, please. Counselor Godu, Counselor Phillips, all in favor? Carried. Okay. So
We
we're
just
closed.
have two members of the gallery that are still with us here. So Miss Lynn Banks and Miss Lily Claimer, if you could please just exit the webinar.
buggy me, they're wanting an update on a meeting around the bypass, and right or wrong, I said, I don't need another meeting with staff to tell me that you're committed to the project and that it's gonna happen, like, sorry, I don't wanna waste Swipe time, I don't wanna waste my time. And so he gave me an update that they're close to the end of the design build, and I said, fine, when that is complete, well, you can come present that to council. So, I would suggest that we engage Rob, because it's my understanding he has jurisdiction over that section of road. So we would start there, and, maybe, hopefully you can help facilitate this. Reach back out to Rob and say, we wanna talk about the streetscape, we'll set up a meeting. We'll find out what their criteria is for the stoplight.
The warrants here.
See if it's gonna be an easy path, and if, you never know, we might get a good answer, then he says, yeah, just give us a resolution to council and we'll do it. If he says, well, you gotta do this, and this, then we can then maybe engage the speaker. So if you're comfortable, we'll start with Rob.
Comfortable with that, yeah, we've, let's, Courtney, need a motion to that effect, or are you okay with that?
I look at Courtney, because I just gave you some work to do, so.
So we're really just looking to schedule that meeting with the MTO for next steps. Robin, I don't know his last name, but I will capture it. And we're no longer looking to engage with, MPP or not on this.
No, if the mayor's suggesting a different avenue, which might, facilitate matters, and if it does, and if it doesn't, rather than escalate.
Yeah, so we'll just start it, Rob.
So, if you like a motion, I can make one, but.
I've copied down just some direction in the resolution to receive 6.1.1, and that's just that council direct staff to forward the council resolution 2024-069 to our MTO contact, and I'll clarify his name, requesting a meeting to discuss further.
And just be specific about the streetscaping, because when I spoke to him on the phone, I told him I didn't want a meeting to hear that the bypass, you know what I mean? Then he's gonna receive this and go, what the heck? You told me I didn't want a meeting. You didn't want a meeting. But this is different.
The streets taking on the, lighting at, concession.
Just because it does involve the bypass a little bit. Judy from Ted Arna's office called me and said, I received an update from the mayor's office. You don't want a meeting. So I said to Judy, please relay to the speaker that I didn't see the value in another meeting with staff at MTO, but I still want a meeting with the minister to express our desire for the bypass. But I'm sorry, I just don't need another meeting of them telling us we're doing the mid-block interchange, and we're still acquiring land for the bypass. Well, okay, that's great. Just send in an email and we'll move on. But I definitely do want to get in front of the minister and express the importance of this bypass. So I believe Judy's taking that back to concern. All right. So we have a path forward with Rob. We see how it goes. So that's just capture the minutes, or John moved that, seconded by Councillor Bailey.
Yep.
All in favor? Carried. Consents, that's a couple pages. Oh, 3 pages of the delegations done. Public meetings. We have 2. April 3rd, 2024, Your Town Rising event located at 23 Brock Road South by 7 p.m. This is by invitation only. Did people receive their invitations?
So it's by invitation to the folks that are affected, and then it's also open. Your Town Rising. So it is, yes, we have reached out to our business community, our stakeholders, as well as our community groups, members of council, and certain committee members. So,
Good.
yeah.
Then April 11th, 2024, Heritage Designation Process Open House located at 23 Brock Road South at 7 p.m. And the affected property owners are,
Yeah, so the affected property owners have received direct invitation to that, as well as it's open to just the general public.
are these mayor attend public meetings, or are these staff?
They're
run?
not statutory, but you are more than welcome.
Just, I do think the Your Town Rising event has gone on social media.
Mhm.
Like, this says by invitation only, but it sounds like on social media, anyone can show up. Just a heads up, because I saw it on what's happening, Plus Lunch or Plus Lunch Today or something. So
So are you gonna turn people away at the door? How's that gonna work?
I was gonna try to find it.
I think I recall seeing it. Too.
Yeah.
So through Mr. Chair, we likely won't turn anyone away, but it is a sort of focused group that the presentation is looking to be delivered to, but certainly we wouldn't turn anyone away.
Next, we have 9.2.1. This is Finance 2024-007. Ms. Hassan.
Good afternoon, council. So this is an annual report that's required in accordance with the Municipal Act. There have been no significant changes from previous year reporting. I'd be happy to answer any of council's questions.
Resolution, Ms. White-Fox.
That report FAN 2024-007 entitled Remuneration and Expense Paid to Members of Council and Others 2023 be received.
Been moved by Councilor Goyette, Councilor Spillis. Any questions or comments? All in favor? That's carried. Report ADM 2024-013, amendment to mandatory planning pre-con. That's Steve.
Three, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this report is to provide council with a proposed amendment to the township's mandatory pre-consultation bylaw to include the requirement for pre-consultation for official plan amendments, draft plan of subdivision, draft plan of condominium, and other applications in the Planning Act based on complexity or the township's relationship to the application. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, do you have a resolution?
The council receives report ADM 2024-013 regarding the amendment to mandatory pre-consultation bylaw, and the council gives 3 readings to bylaw 2024-029, being a bylaw to amend the township's mandatory pre-consultation bylaw attached to the report in Schedule A.
May I move for that, please? Councilor Bailey, Councilor Hurst. Any questions or comments for staff? Anything? No? Councilor Bailey?
Just clarification, this is a cost recovery program, correct?
Three, Mr. Chair, that is correct. It is included in our user fees and charges for third-party.
Okay, so adding these 4 new additions doesn't change that. Thank you.
Is there any merit in asking the county to mirror our pre-con for any of these applications?
So through you, Mr. Chair, we would be conducting it on the county's behalf for county level applications that are within Lynch's jurisdiction. So for instance, if there was an official plan amendment that was submitted to the county, they would direct that applicant to come to us. The county would of course participate in that, but ultimately, when we see an official plan amendment coming forward, it's our peer reviewers that offer those comments. So it does have merit to having the township facilitate that process to ensure that there is a pre-consultation in place.
Get that, but is there no value in putting in there that requests the county to not deem applications complete until thorough review from our peer reviewers or something along those lines?
So what this bylaw will do is make those applications subject to the provisions of this bylaw, which includes a detailed, potentially multiple stage review.
You know what I'm
Prior.
trying to fix, is this gonna?
This is certainly
Are we
going to
good for
help.
now?
Yes, yeah.
Do we bill the county then for that portion, or it's a benefit to us, so we'll just.
So through Mr. Chair, it's all third-party cost recoverable, so the applicant bears the cost. The county likely won't be charging a separate fee to the applicant for these pre-consultations.
Well, an OPA, they get them. For the gravel one, it was 50,000, they get a lot of money for the fee, so, okay. All in favor? Okay. Rest of this is approved. All right, so Councilor Bailey, we moved the written delegation for the heritage objection to be dealt with, I believe it's this first report.
Okay.
So we want to do, how do you want to do that?
Do you want to look at the delegation first?
Has everybody read the written response from the objector? So I don't want to take away from their written delegation. I've read it. I spoke with them yesterday. I know members of council here spoke with them. So the perception of just receiving it for information without us having this quick conversation could have been, we didn't pay it any attention, but everybody's read that written delegation. So I'm comfortable receiving it, the delegation, and then dealing with the report. So if you have a resolution to receive the delegation.
Yes, the council received the delegation by Paul and Jamie Kreutzweiser regarding item 9.3.2 designation objection for property for 492 Watson Road South for information.
All right, can I get a move for that? Councilor Spillis, Councilor Bailey? Sure. Okay, all in favor? Carried. All right, so Justine, you're up.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this report is to advise council of objections received to council's notice of intention to designate for the properties municipally known as 4492 Watson Road South, 32 Brock Road North, and 43 McClintock Drive. Staff are seeking council's direction with respect to proceeding with the designation process. Staff are recommending that council proceed with option 1 to continue with the designation process and direct staff to report back with proposed designation bylaws at its May 22nd, 2024 council meeting. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is the intent, if this is passed as requested by staff, that again, we tell the 4 affected residents that the meeting in May will be the final decision? Yes, I just don't want any loopholes, but I don't want anybody falling through the cracks. Very, very sure that we're notifying them. Okay. All right, so did you want to read the option 1 and as staffs?
Yep, certainly. So that report ADM 2024-014 entitled 2023 designation objections be received. And whereas the Township of Plymouth Lynch stated its intention to designate the properties municipally known as 4492 Watson Road South, 32 Brock Road North, and 43 McClintock Drive. And whereas the Ontario Heritage Act requires that the council of the municipality shall consider an objection and make a decision whether or not to withdraw the notice of intention to designate within 90 days after the 30-day notice period. Therefore, be it resolved that council either affirms or withdraws its decision to designate 4492 Watson Road South, either affirms or withdraws its decision to designate 32 Brock Road North and 43 McClintock Drive, and that council directs staff to bring heritage designation bylaws for the properties for council's consideration at its May 22nd, 2024 council meeting.
We move for that, please. Councilor Harris, you have to. You're on that committee. And Councilor Goya.
Sure.
Thanks. So that's, okay, council.
Yes, I'd like to withdraw the decision with respect to 4429 Watson Road and respect to 32 Brock Road North. I agree that we should avoid having heritage properties demolished. But in these particular 2 instances, let's discuss 4429. The residents of that property have spent a lot of money putting back the actual heritage features into the property, and I can't see that for any reason being demolished until the next review period, which would be 5 years from now. So I want to be fair to the people who own this property. Have done a lot of work, and they have their reasons why they're saying it's not, they don't want to proceed, and I want to respect that rationale. The second property, 32 Brock Road North, it's we have a statement from the property owner as well, and it's in the floodplain. In the floodplain, you demolish a building, you can't put anything up. So I see that as being very, very remote. Somebody's going to go in there, buy that property, and demolish it. And for that reason, the demolition is very remote. So again, I'd like to suggest we withdraw the decision for that particular property. With respect to the third one, 43 McClintock, I don't have any compelling reasons to say that it would be not demolished in the future, so I would proceed with affirming this decision.
Mr. Bailey?
Thank you. The way I see the process happening right now is that by expressing our intent to continue to designate, go down that process, is essentially it's buying us a little bit of time. We have a couple months. I think our next meeting's in May. And what that time gives us is time to talk with property owners, to try to dig in and do a little more research into certain properties. We're not making a final decision until the end of May anyway. So whether we're choosing to withdraw or not withdraw, at least continuing on with the process today, it gives us a little sense, or gives us a little bit of time. I was going to bring this up later in the meeting, kind of in announcements, but I did attend the heritage, sorry, losing my breath. The heritage workshop. I don't think any council came. There was one member from the heritage committee and some staff. But there was a really kind of big takeaway that I took from it, and I was just gonna read something that came out of it. It says the designation of heritage properties within Puss Lynch essentially means that we have a desire to preserve our cultural heritage. The properties within the township help give us a sense of who we are and what makes us distinct. It defines who we are. Sorry, catching my breath. The Ontario Heritage Act gives us the guidelines to conserve properties that have cultural heritage value and are worthy of preserving. Cultural heritage is everything from the past that a community values in the present and wishes to pass on to the future. Designating a property for their cultural heritage essentially factors in the intangible aspects that occurred in the township in relation to the identified property. The property could represent traditions, ceremonies, attitudes, beliefs, family histories, stories, languages, and morals. A heritage property may be valued for different reasons by different people within the community, and it may change over time as the understanding of its history develops and the context of the community changes. I'm not going to read all of this. And I don't want to diminish the wishes of a property owner, but part of a heritage building and property is bigger than the owner right now. So a heritage property has representation within the whole community. So I think when we're looking at designating properties, we need to kind of be thinking, what did that property mean to people in the past? What does it mean to the people now? And what will it mean in the future? And so I think we really need to think carefully about not designating properties.
Councilor Hurst?
Yeah, well said, Councillor Bailey. I would say two things. I think I very much view this step in the process as we're continuing through the heritage designation process. Today does not designate these properties as heritage properties, the three in question here. I very much feel that I think we can have a dialogue with the property owners over the course of the next number of months to address any concerns that they have potentially. Whether we can rectify those or not, I guess is to be determined, but I think my perspective as chair of the Heritage Committee is we need to put every effort into doing that as we can to respect the property owner's wishes. But also very much in the headspace of if we have a property owner that after we go through that entire process, to Councillor Bailey's point, I think then we have that hard decision saying, is this in the best interest of the community to go against the property owner's wishes? I'm not sure we're at this point yet today. I think we still want to have some dialogue with those property owners. So philosophically, I think we continue to move forward. Unfortunately, we have three that at this current time have submitted requests to not be designated, but want to make sure that we have a very robust dialogue with those property owners to make sure that any facts and fiction or myths associated with heritage designation are well understood and have a high degree of confidence by our May meeting that we really put every effort we can into that. So that's my perspective.
Let's go ahead.
Yeah, I think that is very well articulated. So thank you to the counselors prior to me. I do want to say that, you know, I do really appreciate the letters that these objectors have taken the time to write to council. I think it's valuable input. And I think, you know, there's been a lot of information that's come very quickly that is maybe not entirely well understood. And that can be worrisome and upsetting, especially when you don't necessarily understand the impacts and how you're going to be impacted. I know in the case of Watson Road, the owner did not attend the prior open house meeting because they didn't, I guess, realize that they could potentially be impacted. So I agree with, you know, continuing the dialogue, having the opportunity for us to sort of engage and learn, but also for the property owners to do that as well. And I think, Courtney, the open house that's happening in April, these potential property owners, or these property owners have the ability to attend that as well. Is that correct?
So they're not missing out on that engagement opportunity. And hopefully that will also be an opportunity for everyone to get some more clear information before final decision has to be made. I also wanted to just take a minute to address in the one letter, there was some communication about how there had been a lack of communication. And I had the opportunity earlier this week to speak with our CAO about sort of the process that the township went through a few years ago to formalize our registry, and the communication of that didn't necessarily mean designating. And then subsequently, Bill 23 came out, which really changed that narrative. And it really helped me understand, I think, that not only was it council and staff that were really trying to adjust and change really quickly, but for the homeowners and property owners, how confusing that was. And I don't know, Madam CEO, if you wouldn't mind just sort of sharing that process a little bit, just to help clarify a little bit the communication piece.
Yeah, certainly. So, through you, Mr. Chair, as Councillor Borda alluded to, in 2021, council formalized the plaqued properties in the township. There was a group just over 100 plaqued properties, and we formalized our register, making note that those properties now had non-designated listed status. So the act doesn't require us to notify property owners of that. But of course, council being, wanting to engage with the community, we did. So we sent out notice to property owners, letting them know what that meant, what it didn't mean, sort of explaining it. I think at that time, we heard a lot of feedback about designation, what if this was designation, what was the difference? And so that initial conversation with property owners was around being listed or non-designated. Shortly after, as council is aware, we faced the changes in Bill 23, which effectively said the listed properties become unlisted as of 2025. So we very quickly reacted to that. And I think a lot of the confusion or potential confusion came with those sort of two incidents being close together. I will say that both council and staff really prioritized the public engagement as it related to the designation process. As noted in the report from our clerk, she sort of highlighted the 7 engagement opportunities that we took advantage of over the course of 2023. So it included public meetings, a guide that was distributed, as well as our webpage. We had 2 open houses, one in May and one in April. We did have sort of a feedback letter that we sent out in the summer. And then we followed later that year with contacting again the property owners requesting site visits. So I think that both staff and council really made an effort to sort of communicate, but fully understanding that there probably was some misunderstandings and miscommunications around the previous 2021 formalizing of the register. So I think that's something that staff are taking away and certainly learning from, particularly where we have sort of those legislative changes that are coming fast and furious. How can we best communicate information?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that will give the owner some understanding or comfort, but I do believe at the time when we were formalizing that registry, it wasn't at that time the intention to start designating all of those properties. We were perfectly content with the protection that being on the registry provided in terms of protection from the demolition. But we're sitting here today because of the changes of Bill 23. So this is sort of like our only option available now to protect these heritage buildings. So sorry, that's been long-winded, but I think it's important that the public also understand, why we're doing this. We're not just going out there to start designating just because this is how we've gotten. So anyways, that's all my comments and questions.
I agree with everything said around the table. It's clear in the letters and speaking with the homeowners that the people that own these places are passionate about the history, and they have done the investment to maintain the building, to maintain its character, and we owe that. We owe the people that do that to these old structures because they're still here. my concern is that, yes, the people that are there now are the right people, but you never know what the future will bring, and it is important to our community. So the conversation I had with, the one homeowner was just that this is not being designated today. May is the final decision. It's 2 months to either, no, I hope there's just some stigmas associated with being designated heritage that we can work through, some, for lack of better terms, scared emotions that people will become more comfortable with. But I feel there's value in these, and you're 100% correct, Councilor Goyda. My understanding was the listing of these properties before gave us like a 60 or 90 day notice if there was gonna be a demolition, so we could go out and photograph them, and Bill 23 messed this all up on us, so this is where we're at. Thank you to staff for all the hard work on this. I'm sorry if there was some perceived miscommunications from the public, but it is a very sensitive topic. I think staff have done a wonderful job working through with, especially the individuals that have requested to not be designated. Gone above and beyond our requirements, have tried to make people at ease with this, and that's still a work in progress, so thank you for that. Site visits. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm supportive of the report and keeping it in the process. So Councilor Schools, I think you've heard the table. Did you want to put a motion on, or do you just want to wait till the
Well,
designation?
I think we're gonna be voting either affirm or designate for each item, and I'll cast my vote accordingly. I still, I heard what everybody has said around the table. I still believe those two properties, there's very, very low risk that they're gonna be demolished in the future. These current owners are likely gonna be there for a while yet, and be an opportunity to redesignate, go through the designation process rather again in 5 years, and that's all good.
So we're gonna confirm, see, now I gotta give everybody a second. chance to say their piece.
No, I was concluding my actual rebuttal.
I have a question,
Councilor Bailey?
just a question of staff. Over the next couple months, so until the May meeting, what is the process? What will be happening kind of behind the scenes in terms of the individual bylaws for the properties? Is there still action happening, or sort of what's happening with all the different properties?
So, and our clerk can add, certainly, Mr. Chair, if I've missed anything, but, we'll continue to engage with the property owners should the decision of council be to affirm its decision to designate. Hopefully, these property owners will participate in our open house and get some more information. And we'll be reaching out to them to see how we can help with the process, or if there's information we can provide. If there are specific concerns related to the attributes in the bylaws, what we did offer to the one property owner on Watson Road was we had a heritage planner attend their property and work with them to sort of scope those attributes so that they understood the rationale, but also contributed to the process. That was really important to make sure that that was part of it. So certainly we would offer that to our other two property owners. If they wanted to do that, that could take place. But there isn't any more statutory notice requirements or anything like that. So it'll just be continuing that conversations with them.
Do you think keeping that open dialogue is really important, and just trying to see what myths or what issues there are that we can be kind of working through? Thank you.
All right, so is there any intention to not affirm any of the properties on the report? Councilor Bailey, Councilor Hurst? Councilor Goyda? So you have a due, so I'm just gonna call a vote on all of them at once, so we're going through them individually. And you just say no.
So do you want it all as one motion as it is, or do you want it,
Yeah.
okay. Do you want me to read it again? I can
I
read
think
it
so.
again. Okay,
How long is it?
it's long.
No, as
So
presented.
we did read it,
Yeah.
yep, so as presented, and it, I'm just modifying the resolution for each of the properties, so 4429 Watson Road, 32 Brock Road North, and 43 Milton Truck Drive. That council affirms its decision to designate.
Do we have moving it?
We had Councilor Hurst and Councilor Boyd a second.
You guys are still okay with that? Say yes, okay, all in favor? It's carried, okay. All right, the priority properties. Well, we're not, Why not say yes? If we do a recorded vote, then you could have. So, 'cause I didn't vote in favor of. Yeah, but I didn't vote for. Oh, I do know. All right. 933. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this report is to provide council with the designation bylaws for consideration for the 2023 priority properties for which council did not receive an objection in accordance with council's direction from its November 29th, 2023 council meeting, and staff are recommending that council proceed with the adoption of the designation bylaws as presented.
I can read out each property if you'd like, as we go through the resolution or as presented.
Make her read the resolution.
You can do
I
whatever.
think that's fair. Right? Look at her. She's lost. She's already like, no way, Jose.
I
No,
don't mind going through it. We will
No.
read it again when we get to bylaws though.
No, I think you can just say.
Sure. So that report ADM 2024-015 entitled Designation of 2023 Priority Properties be received, and that council affirm its decision to designate the properties as listed in the reports pursuant to section 29, part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and further that council give 3 readings to each of the bylaws attached as schedules to the report.
All right, move, please. Councilor Hurst, second by Councilor Bailey. Any questions or comments on this last one?
Yeah, I do. I wanted to just take a minute to recognize the enormous amount of work that has taken place to get to this point. When it first was announced that we were gonna have to either designate or lose all these properties, I think we were all thinking like, how are we gonna do this? So to have 14 done in what was a very short period of time, it's been a huge undertaking. So thank you to the Heritage Committee and to staff and Justine and Laura probably really spearheaded that. So, you know, I've heard there's other municipalities much larger than us that are only able to process maybe 2 or 3 properties in a year. And we've got 14. And on top of that, there's been all this public engagement that has taken place as well. So that is not a small accomplishment. So thank you very much to the committee and to staff for your work on that.
Well said.
Yeah, well said. We appreciate it. When I first saw the change, I thought there's no way we're gonna be able to get through 5 of these things, you know, so excellent work and thank you and not taking anything away from the 3 objectors, but to have that many properties agree to the designation, that's an awesome thing as well, so keep up the good work. I don't know. Go ahead.
Just a question, is there a way, tagging on to that, is there a way we can sort of be celebrating these new designations? Whether at this upcoming public engagement for the second list, you know, or I don't know, is there any plan for celebrating or announcing
Yeah.
to those that are willing?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. This is actually being discussed at the Heritage Advisory Committee level. Their engagement subcommittee is looking at opportunities, potentially looking at a different style plaque to show the designated versus the properties that were initially plaqued, as well as other opportunities such as including the designated properties on our interactive heritage register map, the digital archive, and then looking for other opportunities to celebrate them with the community.
Great.
Awesome.
Stay tuned.
Cool. All right, so we have a mover second. Okay, all in favor? That's carried. 9.394.
Share the presentation.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to present a brief presentation of the proposed heritage permit bylaw. And if we can go to the next slide. The purpose of this bylaw is to create a framework for processing heritage permits, heritage permit requests in accordance with the Ontario Heritage Act. Once a property is designated under the act, the property owner cannot alter, demolish, or construct buildings or structures that affect the heritage attributes as identified in the bylaw without applying to the council of the municipality. So the heritage permit bylaw will provide a clear application and approval / refusal process for all applications. Go to the next slide. So there are two pieces of enabling legislation that we're looking at in relation to this bylaw. First is section 3315 of the act, which provides enabling legislation for council to delegate its authority by bylaw to an employee or official of the municipality if council is consulted with its heritage committee. So one of the requests out of this presentation is to refer the proposed bylaw to the committee for comment. And section 3316 of the act provides the enabling legislation for council to delegate its power to consent to alterations to a municipal employee or official with respect to all alterations or certain classes of alterations as described in the bylaw. If we can go to the next slide, please. So staff are proposing 3 areas of delegated authority to be assigned to the municipal clerk or their designate. The first area of authority is to consent to alterations of designations through the granting of a heritage permit exemption waiver. The second is the authority to extend the timeline for all approved permits if an owner is not able to complete the work within the required time frame. And the third is the authority to permit alterations required for an emergency repair or to address a health and safety or security issue with or without the submission of an application. And these approvals will be reported to the committee and council at the next meeting. Next slide. So staff are seeking delegated authority to issue permit exemption waivers for alterations that do not impact heritage attributes as identified in the heritage designation bylaws. The purpose of this is of seeking an exemption waiver is to confirm that proposed work will not impact one of the heritage attributes identified in the designation bylaw. And as you can see, staff are seeking delegated authority for 10 classes of alterations as listed in the draft bylaw. You can go to the next slide. Further, with respect to the heritage permit bylaw process, staff are recommending 4 areas of exemption from an application for a heritage permit. These exemptions include all interior works unless specifically designated by bylaw, typical backyard features that are not visible by the public, such as an outbuilding, less than 10 square meters in size, or patio, etc. Landscaping that doesn't require the use of heavy machinery, and maintenance as defined in the bylaw, which includes gardening, repainting where there's little or no change in color, caulking and weatherproofing. Next slide, please. So there are 3 types of permits included in the proposed bylaw. The heritage permit exemption waiver, as mentioned previously, that would be required to ensure that works being completed will not impact heritage attributes. Heritage permits, which will be for approvals to alter and construct building structures that will impact heritage attributes listed in the designation bylaw, and heritage demolition and or removal permits will be required to remove or demolish buildings or structures that will impact the heritage attributes as listed in the designation bylaw. Perfect. So this slide here is a flow chart of the proposed process for heritage permit exemption waivers. So in this case, the application will be submitted to the municipal clerk. Once the clerk has reviewed the application and all requirements have been submitted, the clerk will deem the application complete and provide notice to the applicant. And from there, the clerk would either approve and issue the permit, or if the permit was refused, it would be referred to the Heritage Advisory Committee for comment and then council for decision. Next slide. On this slide is a flow chart for the heritage permit and the heritage demolition or removal permit. So similarly, this application will be submitted to the municipal clerk. The municipal clerk will bring a report to council to deem the application complete. At that point, council would have an opportunity to request any further information they may require, such as heritage impact assessment. Once council has deemed the application complete, the municipal clerk would serve notice to the owner. The clerk would then bring the application for review and comment to the Heritage Advisory Committee. Following that, the clerk would then bring a report to council with a recommendation for approval of conditions, or refusal. If council were to approve the permit with no conditions, the owner would be able to proceed with their project or apply for any additional permits that were required. Alternatively, if council approved the permit with conditions or refused the permit, the owner could appeal the decision to the OLT, and then the OLT would have the final decision regarding the application. And then finally, just some next steps. This was the first step in the review of the bylaw, bringing this for council's consideration today for an opportunity for recommendations. Staff are seeking council's direction to refer the proposed bylaw to the Heritage Advisory Committee for review in accordance with legislation. And then staff are seeking to bring a next draft of the proposed bylaw at the May 22nd, 2024 council meeting. And as was mentioned previously, staff are also intending to bring the proposed to be shared with any who attend. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. You have a resolution, Ms. Whitefox.
The report ADM 2024-016 regarding the heritage permit bylaw be received, and the council directs staff to report back on the recommendations made by council at a future council meeting.
Can you move to that, please, Councilor Lewis, Councilor Gardner, any questions?
Yeah, I made a series of comments were submitted. Some of those comments were taken care of because of the minor nature of the typos or whatever the case may be. But some of them had some suggested changes that the statement was made that will be discussed at an upcoming council meeting when this is rediscussed. Will the comments that were made with respect to some of the suggested changes be provided to the Heritage Advisory Committee to consider as well?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can certainly provide a similar presentation that will include those recommendations for their consideration as well.
Thank you.
Just a question, the permit process, so that's the second flow chart that you outlined in the presentation. What is the timeline for that? Is there a legislative timeline?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is a legislative timeline, so I did not include that in the flow chart, but it is included within the bylaw and within legislation.
Do you know what it is off the top?
It's somewhere between 60 and 90 days.
So in your opinion, do you think going through all those steps is reasonable in the amount of time that's given, laid out in the legislation?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this process very closely resembles the process within legislation, so I do believe it's reasonable within that timeframe.
Okay. And then I didn't dig deep, but I just wondered, I wondered what the penalty is for someone that ignores a council decision for a demolition. Is there something laid out somewhere that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is within the penalty acts or penalty section of the bylaw, which also mimics the legislation. I can't recall the dollar figure off the top of my head.
I just wondered where that was.
Yeah.
Or just let me know where that's.
Staff can report back on that with the next presentation for the bylaw.
Okay. And then I had, maybe this is getting into the weeds, but I know after chatting with some people in the community, there's a little bit of confusion around what they're allowed to do with a heritage building, what they're not allowed to do, what the restrictions may or may not be, and maybe a lot of that can get discussed at the open house. But one example that came up was, let's say an attribute has been outlined on a structure, and someone wants to put like a glass or a sunroom. So you're going to cover the exterior attribute through a sunroom. So you're still going to see the attribute when you're in the house, but you now might not be able to see the attribute, say, from the road anymore. Can you speak to kind of where that fits into this bylaw?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so because the proposed addition would impact a heritage attribute, then it would go through the heritage permit process.
Okay. And then same thing, the other example was, say, putting a dormer in the roof of a house. If the form of the building has been an attribute, again, it would be considered a heritage permit then to go through there. Okay, that's great. Thanks.
Yeah, three quick things. So very much in line with Councillor Sapulis's comments around the process flow thing. So I think very much my mindset would be at the Heritage Advisory Committee. We'll get into the hairy details of the flow. I'm not sure that's a productive conversation for today. I think the second piece is, actually, I really liked your flow chart, Justine. I think that was very helpful just in terms of understanding the process. And I think if we go back to our site alteration bylaw and a lot of the research that was done into that, there was some really good guiding documents. And my encouragement of staff would be to do something quite similar to the heritage designation process, so that I felt going through the site alteration pieces as a landowner, I have a clear understanding of what's in, what's out, what I have to do in the process, and I think that I thought it was quite robust. So I would very much encourage, after we go through the review process, to have a similar guidance document that those individuals that own heritage properties have a very clear understanding of where, if they do want to do an amendment, it doesn't mean they can't, it just, they have a very, very clear understanding of the process, maybe to building Councillor Bailey's comment around just maybe a very clear understanding. And then probably my third piece would be is, I'm just curious if staff can speak to the outer engagement process that they intend to go through. So I saw a bunch of, milestones here. But what I didn't see is anything going directly to heritage property owners to seek, and I know that's not a requirement, but I think just given the perceived lack of full understanding, this might be a good opportunity for the municipality to go above and beyond what our regulatory obligation is and reach out to those homeowners through the open house or other avenues to really give them an opportunity, because this is a bylaw that impacts them and their property and their livelihood. So I want to make sure that we go that extra step just to make sure that they feel well consulted in the process. I'll leave it at that.
What do you think?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I think something that we could look at, between now and, I don't think it necessarily impacts, the May 22nd meeting, but certainly it might give, property owners that have concerns their ability to provide feedback. If we were to create, an engage lunch survey that was specifically geared towards maybe concerns, myths, the permit process, that sort of thing. We could target that survey by circulating it to the affected property owners to solicit feedback, and it would also be open to the public.
Great.
Yeah, I just, I guess from a high level, I think that the exemption waiver part of this bylaw is a really proactive approach. I really like it. I think it'll really help streamline the process for property owners who have a designated property, who wish to make alterations to components of their property that aren't the sort of the heritage value components, the designated components. I know, in the city of Guelph, we have a property that is currently on the registry, and just to do any work on that property, even though it's on the registry, it first has to go to their committee and then has to go to their council. It's a very lengthy and sort of unnecessary process. So I think this is a really proactive approach. I think that this should alleviate some of the frustrations of having to, if someone wants to do work on their property, it's not necessarily a blanket designation over every part of their property. It's very specific to certain things, and this should help with that and make that process faster. So I think this is really good, a good proactive approach to that.
Just on that note, I think that goes to show too the importance of having the bylaws for each property as accurate as possible, right? So that down the road, if some work wants to be done, we know exactly what the attributes are and there's no confusion about what has value and what doesn't. So over the next couple months, I think working with the property owners and making sure those bylaws are as accurate as possible is really important.
This reads to me that staff trying to make it easier for people to do things on their property if they have a designated property. And I welcome it, and it's good work. The one slide here though says the typical backyard features, and it speaks of that you won't need a heritage exemption for buildings under 10 square meters. So my understanding is 10 square meters is being used because after that, a building permit is required for anything over 10 square meters. This is in the backyard. So my question would be, what I'm trying to do is give people as much leniency as they can have. If somebody has a designated structure and they want to put on a sunroom that's more than 10 square meters and they just apply for a building permit, is there something in that process that the building department can then say, yeah, it's 20 meters, but let's say it's just a long, narrow house or something. and it stays completely behind the structure, and the building department sees that it won't affect the silhouette, and it's fine. But another application comes in and it's perpendicular to the house, it's gonna stick out the side. Is there a way to allow them to just use the building permit component and then building department flag it as, hold on a second, this might impact the heritage? Our determination is it needs the permit, because that's what it reads, right? Is 10 square meters is, you don't need, anyways.
So certainly the process starts with the building department. And then as part of the applicable law review is where we would flag it if there was something that required a heritage permit. So that's sort of how it does flow. It starts with building, and then Justine, our clerk's team, would look at applicable law associated not just with zoning, but with heritage. And so that's where it would get flagged.
So I feel that this doesn't give that leniency, because it says essentially if you're over 10 square meters, which is where it requires a building permit, an exemption can't be given, so.
Through you, Mr. Chair, so there may not be an exemption, but that's where it may fall into the heritage permit exemption, where, again, that could be caught at the building permit phase, or they could be applying directly, but it would get screened out through that process.
So what you're telling me is they've applied for the permit and there's a real possibility that staff would say it is exempt, you're good. Or it could go the other way. This doesn't default it to requiring, that's all I want.
In addition, any extension to a building would require a building permit regardless of the size, right? So, if it was standalone, building, like a shed or a garage or something like that on the property and not attached to the building, then it would be looked at very differently and exempt.
I just thought this was defaulting them into a heritage permit or exclusion automatically over 10 square meters, but that's not the case. It'll be applied for a building permit. Somebody's gonna look at it and say, hey, this makes sense. It's not affecting the characteristics. We can just move forward with the building. And that's, I'm good with that. Okay. So, and Councilor Spools' comments, any other members of council's comments, will go down to the Heritage Committee to be understood.
I just a comment, Councilor Beatty asked the fine, it's $50,000 or 1 year in prison.
And can't they force them to rebuild it stone by
I
stone?
don't know, that's what it says in the actual.
I think it's pretty significant consequences.
I just had a clerical, I just said under section 7. And it says city, and I don't know if that was
I
intended.
picked that up,
Okay.
for instance.
All right, so what's the recommendation for that one?
So that it be received and that we're gonna report back on the recommendations made by council at the May 22nd, 2024 meeting, and you did have a mover and second.
Good, and it is going down to the Heritage Committee or,
Yes, May 6th.
okay, all right. So I'm over there, all in favor? That's carried. All right, you are on fire today. 9.3.5, Ms. Brotherston.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this report is to provide council with an update regarding 2024 conferences as identified in the report, specifically with respect to the delegation opportunity for AMO. The exact submission deadline has not yet been determined. However, it typically closes in June, so staff are seeking direction regarding potential AMO delegations to bring for council's consideration at the May 22nd, 2024 council meeting.
All right. Councilor Spools.
What would you like me to say? I really don't have anything to, add in way of delegations. You mentioned quite a while ago that you get more bang for your buck by meeting directly with the minister, at legislative building.
Yeah, Queen's Park, I think so anyways.
So I'm really, it doesn't, make sense to go here and, speak to some aides rather than the minister. I agree with the previous strategy.
And I mean, not that we've been down to Queen's Park, but, you know, we've been pretty busy with, meetings this afternoon about upcoming MOF around aggregate taxation. TAMO, we're deep into the Auditor General's report, so we're engaged with ministries through there. Not, the bypass with MTO. Again, I declined per se, the meeting with Rod, because I didn't want an update that they're committed to it, but Judy reached out to 10 Hours office, so we're still trying to arrange that meeting at Queen's Park with the minister. Aggregate, I've been floating an idea with, so this one we should talk about maybe in May. Delegation to the minister, and I would like Portland to consider that we are not a willing host of new aggregate pits or licensed quarries, whatever you want to call them. And we could put a caveat on that until such time, I guess, a supply and need study is done, the cumulative effect, the whole Auditor General's report is addressed. I don't know what, but I feel we should have that conversation. I hope there'd be value in hearing whether we're a willing host or not. Is there another one?
So through Mr. Chair, I think we do have a number of items related to ag that are worth mentioning. I'm wondering if the best way to sort of compile it is to have council maybe submit if there are ideas via email, and we could bring back maybe something a little bit more organized to the April meeting
Sure.
for council to discuss. That way we could, if there are delegations, we could ensure to get them in by the deadline in May.
Yeah, that works. Just keep in mind the normal topics. I mean, we're trying to do them through other channels, but one thing, I had a meeting. So we may want to do this. I had a meeting through a task force, I don't know which one I'm on to in. And there's a big push to decarbonation and switch to electricity. And AMO is trying to find where the support is to support this, or anyways, I was stating that natural gas is a very viable and cost-effective energy source for rural communities. So I would feel it, and there's expansion park, one is on our agenda today. Consideration of a delegation to take a position as a municipality on, are we all in on electrification? I feel natural gas is maybe a transition component because electricity is very expensive in the world. So hearing that from our perspective, the ministries, I think that's important. So that's one staff can maybe put on the agenda for April, or when we say April. The bigger issues. That's all I have, I think. Is there any other topics that kind of stick in your mind that we might need to do MECP around well interferences? So.
There may, through Mr. Chair, there might even be benefit. There's been quite a bit of advocacy against the liquid soil, like small processing plants already, but it's certainly an issue for our municipality with that coming down the line, and just maybe restating our position, objecting to the more lax permissions.
Let's do MEC, let's talk about it next meeting, MECP around well interference and MECP response. The energy, natural gas, which you just mentioned, and MTO, specifically with the minister, but because maybe we'll have some traction on that stoplight too.
Yeah.
Improvements at that point, so. And then if you have anything else, we can hash it all out, but today let's just keep it pretty high level. Does that work?
Just have a question. Is there a way to find out? I remember going to one of the conferences and thinking, we're always trying to think about what delegations we can do to the ministers, but then realizing there were other associations at the conference that you can also kind of connect with. But until you're there, you kind of didn't know that they were going to be there to connect with. And I just don't know, is there a way to kind of figure out what other kind of associations are going to be there?
Well, they eventually give the planetary, that they provide the schedule, and you'll see who's showing up and the schedule.
I remember you did one with Hydro.
Yeah.
So that's not that's not a minister level, but it's a really great opportunity to sit down and have, but I didn't know you could have a meeting with Hydro at the conference until we were
You
there
can.
doing, well,
You can.
but it'd be nice to know what other groups are there to then, like, speed limits. I don't know, that sort of thing, but anyway.
Maybe in April, There's more information.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So we have a,
No, not yet. The report ADM 2024-017 entitled 2024 conferences and delegations be received, and the council directs staff to bring this report regarding the EMO delegation request to the May 22nd, 2024 council meeting.
can we move that, please? Councillor Spillis, Councillor Bailey, all in favor? Carried.
And we just send out an email to us and then you guys can look.
Certainly, yeah.
Is anyone going to Good Roads?
I did not.
Is staff
Those-
going?
The Get Her Done Act.
Yeah.
I hate to, Look at ADM 2024, that's Ms. White Fox. You get her done.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, this is a follow-up report. The deadline for comments on this proposed legislation is actually tomorrow. So we're looking to get consensus from council, on the comments that we're going to submit to the province. So you'll note that we, have included previous council resolutions on the matter. We also included 2 County Wellington planning reports. So one more recently, Bill 126, the Get It Done Act, and then also the Bill 150 Planning Statute Law Amendment Act 2023, and that's related to the OPA review and the Urban Boundary Expansion Review Report. So staff did do a sort of overall review of those and have provided a recommendation as noted in the report for council.
Great, so can I get a mover to seconder to support this recommendation as in the agenda? Councillor Goya, second by Councillor Hurst, thank you. All right, questions, comments? Councillor- Oh, that's right, this one you're out, sorry, apologize for that. Councillor Bailey?
I have nothing to add. I like the suggestion that staff has put in there.
Councillor Hurst?
Similar.
Yeah, I support the comments. I would like to say, I was happy to see that the county report did include the hamlet of Pleasant, because I know initially we didn't think that they would entertain that. So I was happy to see that. I think that adds to the support of the comment that was provided. So otherwise, I'm happy with the comments suggested.
Yeah, we approved that at the planning committee last week. And a big part of them supporting that was that resolution from the council for, and they've been supportive. Well, it was one of their ideas to try to ask for it to, and they brought the backstory of how it was removed years ago, and you know, everybody was waiting on the bypass. So they're supportive of it. I was glad it was in there. I did ask the question, is it clear enough that that's the position of the county? And Sarah Wilhelm stated, well, they would have to read the report. So hopefully at the ministry, they read these 2 reports. This White Fox and I sat with a resident that lives down there. This is the hard part. They want to downsize and sever their lot, and you know, whether for whatever reasons, we have to tell them across the table that you can't do it because in the green belt, it defaults to prime ag designation, and the prime ag, you're not allowed consents. And to sit across from somebody that's explaining their personal situation and how they need to do this to, you know, for their retirement, and to say, well, no, it's tough. So this redesignation of the hamlet wouldn't solve the housing crisis by any stretch of the imagination, but it would help individuals. We also have some properties down there that maybe not have proper uses on them that we might be able to legalize, which is important if this hamlet was designated. So that's the message I've been sending whenever I have a chance, and thank you to the county for submitting those comments. Okay, all in favor other than Councilor Spillis? That's carried. Welcome back, Councilor Spillis. Item 9.3.7.
So through you, Mr. Chair, this is just a proposed amendment to the staff expense policy. We are just looking to better utilize the retired devices, so laptops and cell phones, just their replacement value. So the proposed amendment is aimed to allow these devices to be sold to staff versus returning them either at a trade-in value or at no value to our vendor or IT service provider. I think this is a positive amendment to this policy to allow the township to recoup a little bit more money from its retired devices. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, resolution.
That report ADM 2024-019 entitled Staff Expense Policy Amendment be received and that council approve the amendment to the staff expense policy either as presented or amended.
We move that, Counselor Hurst, second by Counselor Goida.
Yeah.
Questions or comments?
I just have a question more out of interest, but why was this not part of the policy up to now? Was there a reason that we had to be returning the equipment?
So through Mr. Chair, I think, it's possible that in the past there were concerns with, like security of the devices and that we would just prefer them to be destroyed. But we've confirmed with our IT providers, they do, sort of wipe the devices clean and oftentimes they refurbish them themselves and sell them. So I think it was just sort of getting there from a security perspective and just including that.
May I recall, the previous council, we did approve a counselor purchasing their computer, so I had to go to council to get this way now as part of the policy. It makes it easier, don't have to bring it back up.
This is, the county allows this, so it's, I think it's good to bring it in line.
It just makes sense to me.
Yeah. Okay, we have a number saying.
Yeah, and as presented then is all right.
As presented, is that?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? It's carried. I believe we're on to item 10.1. Stan is not here. Would you want to give a little synopsis, Ms. Whitefox, or?
Our clerk might be better prepared to give a synopsis for this.
There we go.
Yeah, okay, through you, Mr. Chair. So this is the monitoring report from McMillan East Pit. It's it's the report that we have to request annually through FOI. So this is a relatively new report that council's seen in the last couple of years. So we sent this report off to our peer reviewer, and based on the review, it didn't look like there was any particular responses or concerns with this pit.
Is it the next one that they didn't do as we asked for the wells? No, that's the next one, okay. All right, so we have a, can I get a mover and second to receive this for information? Councilor Hurst, Mr. Spillis, any questions or comments for the clerk? No? All in favor? It's carried.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this next item is for the CBM Whistling Pit or PQA pit. It's their 2023 monitoring report and the peer review. There is an action required with this peer review as noted. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, can we get a mover? Well, we'll just wait. What are we gonna do with these, with the recommendation that they're not doing for the second or third year?
I propose a motion to start.
All right, please.
Yeah.
Whereas the Township of Plymouth is in receipt of report from CBM Aggregates Consultant Groundwater Science Corp. of January 18th, 2024 regarding the 2023 groundwater monitoring summary for the CBM PQA pit license number 17600, part lot 26, concession 1, Plymouth Township. And whereas the report cites the pond monitors North Pond and South Pond should be cleaned out and deepened to approximately 305 MASL or lower, and whereas the Township consultant Hard Environmental in their correspondence of March 1st, 2024 regarding CBM Plymouth Pit PQA monitoring report comments concurs with the recommendations from the groundwater science that the North and South Pond stations be cleaned and deepened, and notes that this is the second year the recommendation has been made. Be it resolved that staff ask the pit operator CBM Aggregates when this work will be undertaken and that the MRF be added to the correspondence.
All right, mover please, Councilor Spillis, seconded by Councilor Hurst. Questions or comments? All in favor? Carried.
Thank you, John.
That's right, thanks, John. Council reports. I had a meeting with MOF staff, which was pre-meeting to the meeting we're having tomorrow at 10. And they want to discuss, so the province is doing a review of assessment across Ontario for the next cycle, impact assessment cycle, which has been delayed for quite a while. And they're prioritizing the aggregate operations out of that review. And one of the components they're stating is that
at the county at AFNHR yesterday, we were discussing this. We want to get away from using this term, but I'm gonna use it anyways. The pendulum swinging, so forget the cycle, but maybe 2008, no, the cycle you were in first. PAC made a deal with OSSGA and they changed the assessment of gravel pits and the pendulum went way the other way. And then, Wellington started, highlighting this concern, Tamil got behind that taxation, they did the appeals and they won at the ARB. And now, OSSGA's opinion is the pendulum swinging the other way, but we don't feel it's a pendulum swinging, like, we wanna just characterize it as swings, or we just don't wanna call it pendulum, because that first deal shouldn't have been made, so the MOF is looking at ways to prevent these taxation swings. And at this meeting, I highlighted that any relief of tax that industry has provided falls on the burden of the municipal taxpayer. And I said that if that's the desire of the province is to give an industry a break, they can give them their break on the education component of the tax bill, which is 20% of their tax bill. That would ensure that every Ontarian is subsidizing this industry if we have a housing crisis that needs to subsidize aggregate, not the local taxpayer. There's a push to raise the levy versus taxes. I didn't support that approach for a couple of reasons. How much time we got? 3:17. The URIC decisions states that a levy can be enough to cover the cost of the program. And even when I was meeting with OSSGA, the director stated to me that he felt the levy paid more so to the local municipality does cover those infrastructure needs, or not deficits, but the degrading of the infrastructure above and beyond normal use from the aggregate industry, we're receiving enough money. But then the next breath, they were like, well, let's raise the levy instead. I said, we can't do that. There's a URIC decision. It has to, you have to prove that we need more money to cover this infrastructure gap, and I don't believe it's there. I think we're pretty close. Second component to that, as I stated, them paying a fair share of taxes will prevent sprawl, for one, instead of just getting more pits to have more pits, because now you're gonna be paying proper tax on it. You'll likely just have enough pits to meet your demand, or maybe have a little bit of redundancy instead of having excess ones, because you're not paying much tax on them. So that's the other component. I stated that legislation should be made to prevent MPAC from being lobbied. The first round of that shift in taxes onto the residential taxpayer away from the agri industry was a deal that MPAC made with the industry through lobbying pressure. And in the ARB ruling, it states that MPAC was applying a relief of tax that wasn't supported by legislation. That's in the ARB ruling. So I highlighted that to them. If you want to prevent these swings, don't let MPAC implement them like that. Use data. And that's the next part that's coming. MPAC has reviewed, and Councillor Balmer and I spoke with members that represent MPAC at AMO. Can't remember. Remember? Anyways, and that's exactly what they said. They've made circles of land values. And they're using data to determine the land values. So that's great news. So these are all things I'm reiterating to, I drew a comparison. This one made me a bit nervous because I didn't have a director of finance with me, but I stated that to help limit these swings or maybe eliminate them is create a specific property tax class for aggregate operations. That does come with its risks in the sense that right now, well, my understanding would be that now it would just be this property and they can kind of do whatever they want in it because they have their own tax class. But right now they have to report on which parts are being stripped and then the rate that is applied to that tax class, we need to ensure that the province put an appropriate rate to the tax class. Otherwise, it'll again be a subsidy. So there are some risks, but it would definitely smooth out that graph of spikes and valleys. So that was, and the last thing I brought up, and I went back after MPAC a bit, was their interpretation, so back in whenever that first swing of taxation went down, no, I'll correct that. I believe it was a decision of Clarington. They had taken exception to an assessment of the gravel pit, and my understanding is Clarington was trying to add the value of aggregate in the ground to their assessment. The operator appealed and successfully appealed, and the ruling that came out of that was thou shall not add the aggregate value to their assessment. However, it could be argued that MPAC was then going forward removing the value of aggregate from the assessment. So the analogy I used with them, and I've used it a few times, is that if a horse farmer comes and buys a farm in Puslinch, it's worth $1.5 million. Because that's just what the land is worth in Puslinch. So as far as MPAC is concerned, land is worth 1.5 million for a 100-acre farm. If an aggregate company came in and bought that same horse farm, because the horse farmer doesn't know if there's aggregate below the grass or not, and bought that farm, then MPAC would remove half the value of the property for the aggregate, but that's a false assessment because the land is still worth 1.5 million as a horse farm. So it's an interpretation component that I said that, and this is again, those peaks and valleys of assessment is, get the interpretation correct from MPAC. So, and it was a good meeting. There was some other things discussed that, I was a little frank and I don't feel like repeating here, because I was honest and I don't want to devalue any relationships, but, they're definitely listening. I feel that TAMO has raised its stock with all the help of and support of this council and other councils that have aggregate operations that were being added to these task force, the planning task force, the recycled aggregate task force. So that we're at the table. And then yesterday, I think it was yesterday at AF and HR, Mr. DeHart is much more comfortable with this review of the tax system. I am not. I'm just nervous that, I'm just worried there's something I'm not seeing. But anyways, those are the big bullets that I was putting, back to MOF, and I was very grateful to be at the table. Another thing I've started to do, and, I've been asking Ms. White Fox to join me on these meetings, for a few reasons. Because we have a big area, but March 26th or 7th, I can't remember when the TAPL meeting is. We're gonna be looking at hiring an executive director, which leads into Oral Madani passed a one-time significant contribution to TAPL, at least 25K. I believe Zora passed it. I was hoping it was gonna be annual funding, but I feel we can work off that one-time value for now. A big part of the role of the executive director would be to increase the membership so that it's sustainable going forward, but it's the right direction to go. So with that happening, Ms. White Fox has requested, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
With the executive director being in place, she'd like to take a bit more active role with TAPMO, and I know Ken Court's up at the county's been doing it for 4 or 5 years, so. I think the workload with the ED in place, I was a little worried when she suggested, I initially said no. Cause she already works too much, but we kind of talked about it and we feel that with the ED in place. And feel free to change your mind at any point. But it'll also get Ms. White Fox in on these meetings and meeting these people, making those connections and especially with AMO, like we're doing more and more with AMO, and these are people that you're gonna be working directly with. So I think it's beneficial to yourself and to the corporation. So, what else do we have? Anyways, and then so today we have pre-meeting for MO at 4, and we have AMO representatives to talk about the taxation component, and then tomorrow at 10 is where we meet with the Ministry of Finance. Again, about this aggregate taxation, getting some stability. And the TAP we're doing I think that's it. So what's going on? All right. Shoot.
Do you envision a point in time where Puslinch Township will be having a financial discussion around TAPMO funding similar to other municipalities?
After the 27th.
I'm just curious where that
Yeah, I'll have a better feeling. Well, I know too, support of it. I'll know the uptake on, the membership fees. I know we got a couple new upper tiers that joined because they are general support. You know, and again, I think I wanted annual funding. But if the other two sponsor municipalities are just getting like say 25K. What do you normally call that? Seed money? Like. so-
Foundation money, yeah.
So it'll start it and I'm hopeful that other municipalities buy in, but I also see the value at some point if others are not. Maybe it's worth it for us to take a bigger role in that position. I don't know, those are conversations later, but I am very excited we're gonna review a couple applicants. I'm excited for either one of them and it's the right direction in my mind, so. Yeah, I'll come back to you guys, maybe April, sorry. All right, I'm gonna move in a second there. Do you have something?
Yeah, I have something, the Bush's High Speed Initiative Committee, Glenn James, as you know, has been, here a couple of times with computing, he's the chair of the committee. He has to step down, he's resigned, he's got a serious health condition he's dealing with, so, you know, spoke to Courtney yesterday and Courtney sent him a card, thanking him for his service and as well as some flowers to on behalf of the township to the homestead. And we'll be looking at getting a new chairman in place a week from this, from tomorrow.
Oh, that's, I'm sorry to hear that and pass on my thank you to all of the hard work that, you know, we put into the high speed committee and it served our residents well. And even the Facebook group, people would ask and they'd get answers and it was amazing. So, and you looked after that card. Do you need any money for that, like funding money? Or?
Nope, it should be delivered already today, so.
Okay, so we get a mover and a seconder for both those reports, please. That's great, Councilor Willis, all in favor? Oops, right there we go. That's right. Work. Sorry. John, bylaws, what's my thoughts?
So through you, Mr. Chair, we have quite a list. So I'm proposing to, instead of reading out each bylaw number, perhaps just reading out the affected property address.
Yeah, or as presented in the report, whatever you want to do, whatever's easier for you, you go.
Okay, so, that the following bylaws be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. And we have, approximately 14 bylaws related to the designation report. And I'll read out the properties that are being designated in accordance with the draft bylaws presented. So 2020 Victoria Street, 42 Queen Street, 46 Queen Street, 78 Queen Street, 80 Brock Road South, 80 Queen Street, 84 Queen Street, 319 Brock Road South, 600 Arkle, 834 Watson Road South, 4616 Wellington Road 32, 6705 Ellis Road, 6990 Wellington Road 34, and 7156 Concession 1. And finally, that bylaw 2024-029 being a bylaw to amend the mandatory planning pre-consultation bylaw.
Okay. We will, that one's Councilor Spills, Councilor Hurst, all in favor? That's carried. Any announcements? Okay. Closed session is done. No business arising from the closed session. Any notice of motion today? No. Any new business?
I just want a point of clarification, the bylaws associated with the design objections, they weren't included in this list. So is there a separate bylaw to happen?
At the May 22nd meeting, correct.
I just was contemplating new business in my mind here momentarily.
I have something I could share.
Sure, shoot.
So through Mr. Chair, just something I think it's an accomplishment for our staff, but also for, our outdoor rink. And I know we've had a very, very warm, sort of wonky season, but this is the first time that we can recall the rink being open after March break. So I think Mr. Fowler, our director, indicated it might be open for the long weekend for Easter. So I just think that's quite a accomplishment.
I did notice it open. I peeked in after basketball. And I had to see if there's any ice in there. Oh, there's ice still there. So that's great, Mr. Fowler. So it's working well, or at least working, which is awesome news. So we're gonna try and have that open, you said, for the April.
I believe the director said for Easter weekend, and then after that, we reassess where we're at.
Awesome. So the curtains are working, Mr. Fowler?
Mr. Mayor, yes, they seem to be contributing to the longevity of the ice.
That's great. And we're kind of on a schedule of just drop-in kind of hockey, or not hockey, sorry, drop-in skating or something.
Public
Miss-
programming.
Sorry?
Public programming through your Mr. Chair, yes, public programming.
And obviously the website's been updated, and could we push out some, you know what, if we push it out, then it'll go at 30 degrees and it's great.
Supposed to be cold till the weekend.
Yeah,
Is it?
Yeah.
It'd be. Is there a lot of people using it?
we should all.
Do they know?
Sample size of, I've probably been a half dozen times with my kids since Christmas, and it's been pretty busy.
Good.
Like, so the dressing rooms are clean, you don't see any garbage around, so kudos to the staff. It's been a great experience for my kids.
So I would maybe suggest that do we work a Thursday and we're off Friday? Is that what it is?
Correct, yes. So through you, Mr. Chair, the hours of the Optimist Recreation Center do mirror the office hours. So we would be closed for the statutory holiday on the Friday as well as the Monday.
Oh. Gotcha.
No rink.
No
on
ring.
Friday. Okay.
If the ice is in, can we authorize? Will be tough to get staff.
Yeah, I think it'd be.
Anyways, it's open the Saturday and Sunday of the weekend.
Believe so.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that's correct, yes.
That's great. Awesome. Okay. New business. I mentioned it earlier about the council discussing, passing a resolution of not being, supporting any further aggregate, pits. When would a good time be for I think you talked to me about this.
So through Mr. Chair, we have made some progress on that study that council authorized funding for. I think we're gonna get a scope of work in front of council in April, maybe May. And I think that report is aiming to address sort of the cumulative effects of aggregate. So it might be a good time to look at that.
Where I was going with that, and I also think that if we feel we've done our part to support the housing crisis, building infrastructure, whatever you want to label it. As we get new applications, applying directly to the minister to say no, if that's our position. Instead of just submitting comment on an ERO, official statements from us in resolution to the minister directly of our position. Let's highlight these concerns and, we can go from there, but so I think I agree with you, Ms. White. There's other time for that, but I just want to put that on everybody's radar because I just want to take it to the next level. All right.
Are you aware of any other municipalities that are taking this similar tack, like this kind of the concept of not a willing host for aggregate, or are we on the cutting edge of this?
No, it's something I thought about when I'm laying awake at night thinking about aggregate at my house. So not that I'm aware of Councillor Hurst, it's just my school of thought was the auditor general report came out. There's so much that needs to be fixed per se, and no fault of anybody's here is that typically you just go through the normal process. And I thought, why don't we elevate it? When I see those things, so it's kind of a new thing, I thought.
Well, I think there's an advocacy group east of us, and years ago they'd had a moratorium on new pits. And I think they're trying to bring that back up, and they're trying to get their council to get on board and reinstate it. So there is the conversation out there.
Anyways,
I think it's good timing to
It's worth having a discussion and, the ARA dictates that the minister, whoever approves it, shall look at the operating history of a applicant. It's one of the few, I don't even know if I want to call it a tool, opportunities that we have as a municipality. And, I mean, they could strike it out as with the wipe of or new legislation, but until that happens, I think we should utilize it and just up our our official position on those topics. We'll discuss it, but maybe not. All right, I think we have adjournment. That gives us 24 minutes to,
I have our confirmatory bylaw, if you're okay.
Yep.
Okay, that the following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2024-031, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the corporation of the township of Plymouth at its meeting held on the 20th day of March, 2024.
All right, can I move that, please, Councilor Lewis and Councilor Hurst, all in favor? We're adjourned.
Council hereby adjourns at 3:36 p.m.
a little over an hour past. Oh, can I get a mover for that? Councilor Lewis, Councilor Hurst, all in favor? Carried, adjournment.
So